I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Thomas Jefferson, a letter to James Madison, January 30th, 1787.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back with you for another episode of our show. I wish it was under better circumstances. And by the way, if you're noticing I'm a little bit out of breath here, I made mistake number one in radio as I ran to the mic. So you should never run to the mic. Let's go ahead and get into the featured topics for today. We got a lot of stuff on the menu here, things that we're going to be digesting. If you haven't heard already, there was a shooting by an Islamic terrorist, and yes, I'm just going to go ahead and come out and say it. He was an Islamic terrorist. I feel completely comfortable saying this. I know you're going to hear a lot of media outlets hesitating to use that term. If you're President Obama, you're never going to hear that term come out of his mouth. If you're waiting for him to say that, you're never going to hear Islamic terrorist or radical Islamic terrorist or extremist radical Islamic terrorist. Any phraseology of that? It's no. It's just some active shooter. This will all be swept under the rug now. If this was a Christian, by the way, you would have been hearing all over, the mainstream media for weeks and weeks and weeks after this is done. All right? And I'm just going to make a quick prediction right now that in a few days, we won't hear very much about this, other than the fact that they have to, because this was the largest shooting in American history now. So they'll have to use this, and they'll use it to call for more gun control, call for more restrictions on our freedom. There's a lot of different aspects of this that we're going to be talking about. Talking about gun control, how they want to come after encryption. It's the privacy versus security debate. We're back at it. More spying, all of this, thanks to this. This is a terrorist attack. Essentially, this is a terrorist attack conducted by a U.S. citizen that was inspired by ISIS. So, the title of today's episode is Islamic Terrorist Kills 50 in Florida Shooting. This is episode 122 of our program. This is On the Move. I am, of course, your host, Mac Worley. This is On the Move with Mac Worley. Let's go ahead and get to some business before we get into our featured topics here. Don't forget to check us out. We broadcast week after week. We didn't broadcast last week, though, but we're back at it again this week. You can check us out at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also go directly to our podcast website, Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Again, that's SPREAKER.com/OnTheMoveShow. Don't forget to like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And you can also check us out on our blog. It's OnTheMoveShow.blogspot.com, or just click blog on OnTheMoveShow.com. It's on the homepage there. And I would be remiss if I did not ask you to please check out our shop on our website. That's OnTheMoveShow.com. Click the shop link. We have lots of original merchandise for sale on there. In our gear store, which is an Amazon store, we got books and things like that for sale. We also have on the main page there on the shop page, you'll see we got a Never Trump design. We've got a I Heart Open Carry. We've got Bear Arms T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, phone cases, all this kind of stuff. So check it out. I'm sure there's something that you'll like if you're listening to this program, if you're libertarian. Oh, by the way, there's a Be Libertarian shirt on there. All these designs are original, made by my wife, who's an awesome graphic designer. If you need any graphic design services, contact her at LATOSHA WORLEY. That's Latasha Worley, LATOSHA WORLEY @gmail.com. Anyway, so now that we got that done, let's talk about what the featured topics we're going to be discussing today. We're going to talk about this ISIS-connected lone gunman who assaulted the nightclub with a legally purchased firearm, actually 2 firearms that he had, killing 50 and wounding 53. I'm going to talk about how the left is already, before the dust is even settled, they're already using this event to strip Americans of their rights. We're talking about gun infringements, encryption, more spying. It's the classic privacy versus security debate, and we're headed back into this one. These kind of terrorist attacks, they are not going to end. So the next feature topic I want to talk about after that is how do we deal with terrorism and the threat of ISIS? What can we do? Because our president seems hell-bent on just ignoring this and acting like nothing's going on and we don't need to do anything about terrorists. Now, look, I'm not calling for war. I'm not saying that we need to get troops on the ground, but we do have to realize, all right, and I don't trust this government. I certainly don't trust this administration. I don't want them to put boots on the ground in Syria because I know what they're trying to do is oust Bashar al-Assad, the former president of Syria. All right. They're trying to do regime change. All that's going to do is create more instability in the Middle East, creating a power vacuum that ISIS will fill. And certainly doesn't help the fact that we've been arming ISIS, funding them, training them, all in an effort to oust the Syrian dictator. And why are we doing that, by the way? I know it's been a while since I've talked about it, but it's all because of oil money, the petrodollar, the U.S. petrodollar. They want to make sure that all the oil is sold in U.S. dollars. And in order to buy oil, first you have to buy U.S. dollars first. And you have to hold dollars overseas. Now, what happens if suddenly people start selling oil, large amounts of oil, in something other than U.S. dollars? Well, people don't need to have these dollars out anymore. They don't need to have hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. dollars in their possession. So what will happen with that? These dollars will come flooding back into the U.S. economy instead of being out in foreign bank accounts, and we'll see hyperinflation. This is what happens. This bubble will burst, and this is what our government is trying to do. They're trying to prevent from happening. However, they're just continuing to kick the can down the road. This system is unsustainable. We've completely built our economy around the U.S. petrodollar. Everything is set up. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scam. It's a pyramid scheme, folks. It's going to come crashing down. And it's best that we face this head on than continue to kick the can down the road. And how we're kicking the can down the road is ousting regimes in the Middle East, creating more instability, trying to get a more friendly group of people in that area. That way they'll let us build a pipeline going from Saudi Arabia up through Turkey into Europe. That's the whole plan here. This is not about what they're doing over there, all the meddling that they're doing in the Middle East. This is not about keeping Americans safe. It's about that petrodollar. That's all it's about. So all these events and things like this, these will be used as a way to get us boots on the ground. I'm already predicting by this time next year, I would say 12 to 18 months, we'll see boots on the ground, or at least major discussions about boots on the ground in Syria. We're talking 20 to 30,000 American troops at a minimum on the ground in Syria. Now, I don't want that, but I also understand that we need to do something about ISIS because we're at war. Now, I don't trust this federal government, this administration to wage that war, but we're at war. And we need to call it like it is, all right? It's kind of a weird position to be in. It's kind of a dangerous spot. But I want to look for solutions, and I want to get to this. It'll be later in the show, much, much later in the show, probably the second, third hour. I want to talk about solutions, about how we can how can we approach the situation with ISIS. How can we fight ISIS without turning to the federal government? What can we do? We first have to take an overhead view of the situation. We have to understand the situation that we're in, and we have to commit. Because one of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in is we have not committed. We have been feckless. I was against us going into I was against us going into Iraq in the first place. I didn't want us to overthrow Saddam. He's a bad guy. So's Assad. I'm not for these bad guys, but sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And by creating these power vacuums, we've destabilized the Middle East worse than it's been as long as I can remember. You know, our meddling, what we have done, has put us in more risk, in more real danger. And our decision to enter into Iraq was a bad one. But once we were there, I listened to what our generals on the ground were saying. If we pull out of there, our allies on the ground aren't going to be able to maintain control, and it will all come collapsing down. And when Obama pulled up stakes and ran out of there with his tail tucked between his legs, that's exactly what happened. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, we need to stay there now that we're there. Otherwise, what did we spend all this blood, sweat, and treasure for? Was this all for nothing? I got friends who died in this fight. Was this all for nothing? I mean, hell, we fought over Fallujah how many freaking times now? What is the point? If our leaders are going to continue to lead us down dangerous and reckless paths, and then be feckless about it when we elect someone new, once you've done something like this, once you oust a dictator, you have to commit. You have to, especially in an area where you have Islamic terrorism like we see in the Middle East. Who knows what's going to fill that void? You have to commit. Instead, we have feckless leaders who pull us out and create an even worse situation. And now Obama's playing the game of trying to keep us out of the Middle East until he's gone. Trying to pretend like there's no problem, and he's going to leave this mess on the next administration. Anyway, we have a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about today. Lots of things on the agenda. I'm going to be joined by my good friend Chris Cruz. He's going to be talking about the Orlando shooting. He lives in Florida. I wanted to get his take on it. And also, I haven't talked about this with him yet, but I want to talk about, towards the end of us chatting about this, what his thought is on this election. What is he going to do? Because I happen to know that he's a never Trump guy, and I want to pick his brain because I've been thinking a lot about this. I've had, 2 weeks since I've talked to you guys? Wow, it's been 2 weeks. That's crazy. I haven't talked to you guys in that. I haven't missed talking to you guys in that long in a long time. It's been funny. Anyway, so all right, we're gonna cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we should be joined with Chris Cruz, and we've got a lot on the agenda. You guys don't want to miss what's coming up next.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang, we're back. If you want to join today's conversation. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley. At this point, we are going to be joined by my good friend, Chris Cruz. He's joining us to talk about this situation that happened in Orlando, Florida. He's a resident of Florida. Chris, are you there?
Yeah, hey, how are you guys?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little bit disturbed about what we saw today. First thing when I woke up, I was hearing about what happened in Orlando, and I imagine you were probably, feeling a very personal connection to this because this is it. Do you live in Orlando? Is that where you live?
I live 20 minutes away from Orlando, yes.
Wow. Okay. So what was it like for you today? Did you hear about it when you woke up, or were you still awake, or what happened?
No, I actually was woken up because of the event. I got a text message around 2:30 in the morning saying there's an incident happening at the Pulse nightclub, and all of a sudden, around 3 o'clock, 3:15, my phone just starts blowing up of news alert. So I had to get up and start working the people on the ground for information. So I've been up since 2:30 this morning.
Wow, so you've had a long day already. Hopefully you can stay awake for the interview here.
Yeah.
So as far as your thoughts on what happened, let me first, before we actually get into this here, I want to read the article that I believe you had a hand in helping write for the Blaze. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so this article is titled 50 Dead in Orlando Nightclub Massacre, Making it the Worst Mass Shooting in American History. A gunman wielding an assault rifle and handgun opened fire inside a crowded Florida nightclub early Sunday before dying in a gunfight with SWAT officers, police said. The attack left at least 50 people dead, making it the worst mass shooting in American history. Authorities were investigating it as an act of terrorism. At least 53 other people were hospitalized, the Orlando mayor said. There's blood everywhere, Mayor Buddy Dyer said. The suspect engaged in gunfire with an officer working at the gay club known as Pulse Orlando around 2 a.m., where more than 300 people were inside. The gunman then went back inside and took hostages. So as far as I understand it, the police were kept at bay at this point because they believe that the shooter had some kind of explosive device on him. Is that correct? Christian?
Yeah. So basically what happened is from the different eyewitness account, the gentleman, the suspect, was coming back into the club, and he came inside and he started shooting. From eyewitness account, they say that he had a long gun, a handgun, and a device. It was never specified that it was a bomb, but the FBI and the Sheriff's Department in Orange County said that it was a device that he was carrying. Now, they did insert 2 robots into the nightclub. They didn't find anything. They were also searching the guy's vehicle that was actually parked right next to the club. So we don't know if he had a bomb, but what we do know is it was confirmed he had an assault rifle and a handgun. Both were purchased legally. He did have a carry license that expired on 2017. The gentleman is from Florida. So he's not a local of Orlando, but he lives about an hour and a half to 2 hours south of Florida. So basically right now what is kind of interesting, and I want to point this out because, like I said, I've been covering this all morning. At the first press briefing that I saw was around 7 in the morning, and they, right out at the bat, they came out and said this was a domestic terrorist attack.
That was the very first thing? What time was this?
That is the first thing, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
That is the first thing that they said. This is a domestic terrorist attack. Then they broadened it up, saying that this could be a domestic and or a international terrorist attack. and which makes sense because, as a police officer like we were, you put all the options on the table, then you start removing after you find the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm having a little problem is that from 7, fast forward 3 hours later, when they were contacting the Islamic group of Central Florida, they backtracked and took the whole terrorist back at the second briefing. The imam came up and talked about that nobody could see this happening, nobody could predict this happening, and that the media should not rush into judgment. One of the reporters said, then why did the FBI and the local police department change their point of view? And if this was never a terrorist attack, then why do we have an imam addressing the media?
So,
by the time...
So what do you think made them change their stance on that?
I think it goes back to, do you remember the San Bernardino? It happened the same way, where they called it a terrorist attack. Then the Islamic local group came up and they did the whole thing of dunkament. But by the third time, the media came out right before Obama addressed the nation. The evidence was overwhelming that this was a terrorist attack, domestic terrorist attack. And then by Obama finishing his speech and the next press briefing, it was known that it was also an international terrorist attack.
So
the thing that I'm bothered.
One second, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to point out some really important details here. First of all, the shooter, he was yelling Abu Akbar or Admiral Akbar, if you're a Star Wars fan, while he was doing all of this stuff. I believe he was engaging with police, yelling Allah Akbar, or whatever, however they say that, and. As far as it's some other things here, ISIS has claimed responsibility. He was investigated by the FBI 2 previous times. So the FBI did know
3 times.
3 times. Okay, so that I didn't know about this the third time. The FBI didn't have enough information on him to get a conviction or any evidence to basically get him off the street or anything. But he was an American-born citizen. He was born in New York State, I believe. And as far as I understand, he was being investigated by the FBI those several times for connections with Islamic terrorism. So but yet he was still able to just a few days ago, according to my information, buy guns legally. And one of the things that I think that we're going to be hearing, and I'd like to get your take on this, do you think that we're going to see a increased effort from the left to push for people who have not been convicted of a crime, never been convicted of a felony, but if you're suspected, if they even suspect you of a crime, that you're not going to be able to get a gun?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I'm working on tomorrow's and the rest of the week's shows for other radio stations, and it's already being called, and it's loading up here, but I'll read you the headline: Gun bill planned in wake of Orlando club shooting. So it's already being talked about, and Senator Bob Casey plans to introduce a bill that will bar someone convicted of hate crimes from purchasing a firearm.
So what do they turn that into a felony or something, or was that already a felony?
Yeah, it doesn't say that, but he's going. This is the senator from Pennsylvania, so he plans that anybody that's been convicted of a hate crime could be. Could not allowed to have buy a weapon. But here's my thing: is the guy has a clean record. This guy Omar has a clean record. He was divorced. According to his wife, they were divorced. They are divorced in 2011. But according to his wife, she said that he used to beat him. That they had a troubled marriage. So this is kind of like,
but yet they haven't convicted him. I mean, I get where you're going with this.
Yeah. It's like I get the point of the bill, but this guy, yes, he was a troubled soul, but you can't just go out there and be like, oh, we're gonna do this, But let's try to put that bill. Let's say that bill was passed. Would that bill would stop Omar from purchasing a gun? No, it wouldn't.
Exactly.
No,
And this is the point, is that the stuff that they're saying will not violate the stuff that the left is saying that to try to prevent guns from getting out into the community. Because, by the way, dust has not settled yet, and we have this from Hillary Clinton immediately after, who said we need to keep guns like the ones used last night out of the hands of terrorists or other violent criminals. This is her talking about the Florida attack. She posted this at 12:11 p.m. So, slightly after she probably drug her butt out of bed, she's tweeting this out here, and they're making comparisons that we need to keep weapons of war off of our streets and things along those lines. All right, first of all, number one, the things that they openly call for, like more background checks, closing the so-called gun show loophole, which does not exist. All of these things are not going to prevent these shooters from getting their hands on these guns. And the only way that they'll be able to do that is an outright ban, and they still won't be able to keep all the guns off the street, because all the stuff that they're doing also, by the way, in order that would actually have some impact, still wouldn't help all the way, would violate our rights and due process. Like, for example, they went into this whole thing not too long ago with the San Bernardino terrorist. I believe it was them, where they were talking about the no-fly list. Was that San Bernardino?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to do that again here, where if you've been investigated by the FBI, even if you're not even convicted, but just suspected of a crime, that now you're not going to be able to. We're going to put a hold on you getting guns. It's the same thing as a no-fly list. They want to violate the due process of Americans, so that they can stop you before you've even been convicted of a crime from getting guns. This is pre-crime. This is worship at the state altar. The state can protect you. Just prepare. And I think honestly, the left, they deny reality and they coddle their followers. And I think that the sooner we realize that the world is a cruel place, the better off we'll be, because the state cannot protect you. You have to protect yourself.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've noticed here. While I was doing the coverage, as you get those trolls, and they start kind of like challenge you what you're thinking. And one person from Africa, this young lady, starts tweeting at me saying, well, Orlando needs to get stricter gun laws. And I'm a gun owner, and just to let you guys know, here in Florida, especially in Orlando, Central Florida, it's already hard enough to carry a gun. For example, if I'm carrying a gun in my vehicle, it needs to be away from my hand's reach. So that means that it needs to be either in a locked box, a locked gun box, and the magazine cannot be inside the weapon. It has to be away of my reach. So that means either in the glove compartment locked up, or in the trunk. So let's say something would happen to me, and I would not still be able to defend myself. And I am a gun owner, a legally gun owner. So, and this is the thing that really bothers me when people say, well, they need stricter laws. Well, not really, because Orlando already has stricter laws when it comes to gun control and gun purchasing. Perfect example here, an eyewitness account says, they heard 20, 40, 50, shots from a rifle. And the place was packed. There was one police officer, because most of these clubs in Orlando, they do have a off-duty police officer or on-duty police officer working the door. If it wasn't for that, plus 8 officers more, the situation that turned into a active shooter, it turned within minutes into a barricade shooter and a hostage situation.
Yeah.
The police officer, non-brave police officer, came in and just started firing back at the shooter, and they were able to take down the shooter. So don't give us the whole thing of, stricter gun control. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Well, all we got to do is look at what happened in Paris. They banned guns in Paris, and yet they were still able to get Kalashnikov-style assault weapons. I'm using air quotes here, folks. AK-47s. And in fact, I think in these, they may have actually been assault weapons. I think they might have been full-auto weapons that managed to get into Paris. So, this place has some of the strictest gun laws in the world, and yet they're still able to get their hands on firearms, and it's because gun control doesn't work. All that you're doing when you have some kind of law that bans guns ownership is you're making it illegal for the lawful citizens, the law-abiding citizens, to get guns. But the criminals, they don't listen to that. Terrorists and criminals alike, they don't care what the law is. They're going to get guns or means to hurt people. So passing laws, all you're doing is removing the guns from the people that you didn't have to worry about in the beginning. What do you got?
I completely agree. I completely agree. And the thing about it is one thing we got to remember is that, at first when they were interviewing witnesses, the gay community started saying there was homophobia, and they started rolling that around, and a couple of false reports came out of a person that was not it. It was not who he was, the shooter. And I was just thinking over here, I was like, just stop with the homophobia. And then once they started saying that it was a Muslim person, then they started the Islamophobia. And I completely get it. But, I just saw one of my friends send out, this is all preliminary. This is all raw information. We live in a world where it's highly technological, and we have so much information and so little time to focus. But one thing, as media people, we just need to just start, not go into real quick judgment when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we just have to start educating when it comes to gun control. I mean, if you saw all these celebrities, spewing nonsense when it came to gun control. And I had to talk to one of them. I was like, dude, just calm down. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. That's one thing that us gun owners need to start doing, which is just start educating what is a gun owner. And it makes, for me, it's just something that I don't understand. Today was one of the first time I've covered an event that happened literally between 20 minutes. Sadly to say, my family has lost 3 family friends and 2 co-workers in this event. We've been all morning trying to communicate, and I've been trying to put up support groups and try to rally up churches and try to rally up faith leaders. And this is the perfect time, even though it's a sad time for Orlando and it's a sad time for our nation. This is the perfect time for our religious leaders, our pastors, our imam, our anybody that practices any kind of spirituality. This is a time where we need to come together. If you remember 9/11 and 9/12, we all came together. Today in Florida has shown that we're still together. There's about 300 people lined up just to give blood. That is one step of coming together. The sad part is that we have 2 knuckleheads that are leading the election, like not President. You got President Obama, which is knucklehead number 1, blaming the guns. Then you got the 2 nominees, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, which Donald Trump is saying that do not congratulate him because he's right. And you got Hillary Clinton saying it's a sad day, we need to take guns away from the people. That is not the time or place to do that. Just to let you guys know, there's been at least 50 people dead in Orlando. And out of those 50, only 7 bodies have been recovered and removed out of that scene. Police officers are going in, and they either have to put earplugs or ignore the ringing of cell phones of families trying to get in contact with their loved ones. So there's still at least 40-plus people inside that building. They're laying dead on the floor. And we're now just saying, oh, we need to do stuff. It's not the right time. The right time right now is to come together and try. And one thing is that people, oh, I can't make sense of this. You can't make sense of something like this. You know this, Mac. I know this. We've actually been feet away from the terrorists. You can't make sense of what you think. All we got to do is just still come together.
I definitely agree that this is the time to come together. I had a conversation on Facebook. Mark on Facebook says that he was so glad that I was calling this what it was, a religious attack from a backwards religion on a community that said religion hates. He was referring to the LGBT community because this was attacking a outwardly, this is what they call themselves, gay nightclub. So he said this shouldn't be an argument about guns. The D-bag was going to get his weapon no matter what. It's a fact that this horrible religion, and I believe most religions are horrible according to him, is to blame for the attack. So this is where I differ between Mark's opinion here. I said that I don't have any problem with religion in general. I do have a problem with religions that encourage and mandate that their followers do harm to others. And I went on to talk about my thoughts on religion in general, about how it can be a powerful tool for the ambitious to gain control over men. But I'm suspicious of organized religion. I do see a lot of value in faith that provides moral codes for people to follow. And if that moral code gives somebody something that I think falls in line with the non-aggression principle, then that's something that I can get behind. I think that a lot of Christians, for example, have a non-aggression moral code. I made that point. Mark went on, he says, I agree for the most part, but religion has stifled our mental creativity and caused more wars than we can count. I'm not convinced religion is the answer anymore to problems we face. Rather, I believe it is often the cause. And then I say, I'm not bashing all religions because the threats we're talking about do not come from all religions. They come from religious extremism, no matter the religion, that violates the non-aggression principle. Forcing others to submit to your religious beliefs, standards, or tests is morally wrong. Imposing your will on others using religion as your justification is morally wrong. Murdering, raping, enslaving, or subjugating non-believers is likewise morally wrong. Believe what you want to believe, just don't force your beliefs on others. So I'm actually curious to talk to you about this, Chris, because we see differently as far as our ideological stuff on religion. I'm an agnostic, and you're Christian. Or are you Catholic? I don't remember.
Christian, yeah.
Okay, so we see differently on this, but yet we can still come together and agree on a lot of different things. And I think for us, one of the reasons why is because you kind of have the same philosophy. You're not going to push your beliefs on me. I'm not going to push your beliefs or my beliefs on you. And we just let each other live. And as long as we're working towards the same goals as like smaller government and more individual freedom, we can work together on things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I've been kind of harpooning today is that today is the day. Today is the day for us, the right side, what they call us, gun lovers, Bible holding, Bible thumpers, Christians. Today's the day to show that Jesus' love that we always preach about, today is the day. Because according to the left, us Christians and us right-wing, gun-loving, Bible-thumping, we hate the gay community. According to the left. And that's why I've been trying to round up all my pastors that I know today and tell me we need to get ahead of this and start changing hearts and minds. And how do you change hearts and minds? You change hearts and minds not by telling you, Mac, you need to accept Jesus as your Lord and Christ Savior. No, that's not how you do it. You do it by demonstrating that love that we preach every weekend, every Sunday, and we read every single day when we read the Bible. That is how we need to start changing hearts and minds. Remove your hate and start showing people, hey, I'm there for you. What do you need? Because today, we are all affected by this. Not just the gay community, not just the Hispanic community. Because if you guys haven't seen, the 7 people that have come out, they're all been Hispanic. And so this is not just the Hispanic community. This is the entire Orlando community that grows into the Florida community, then that grows us as Americans. So 7 Americans were killed this morning around 3 a.m. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to religious things. Yes, religion does have its bad side, according to people. I've seen it, even on my own kind. I've seen it. I see why people have bad taste for us. But at the same time, we still need that spiritual uplifting of just saying, hey, I am there for you. What do you need?
Yeah.
You know, there's a beautiful song out there that says, I'm there for you. Let's pray together. And he just keeps repeating that over and over and over. I'm there for you. You know, and that's who we were before. You know, that's who we were in 9/12, right after 9/11. You know, but we live in a world where, you know, the bodies are still on the ground, and the first thing we do is, oh, that was a white Christian that killed all those people. Oh, that was a black person that killed all those white people. That was a Muslim that killed all Americans. You know, really? It's just frustrating. Half of it, actually, I say like 90% of it is the media's fault. You know, they get that juicy. Oh, perfect example. Today, when I was watching the media press release, one of the reporters kept pushing. Did the guy say something? You know, they were trying to force if he said Allah Akbar, you know, or Allah the greatest, you know, the greatness. You know, no, you know, stop pushing for that agenda. I get it. I got Muslim friends. I should go to school with Muslims. Muslims play a big role in Orlando. I did not know that when I moved here a couple of years ago back because I was deployed. I didn't know the Muslim community had grown that big here in Central Orlando and Central Florida. And I was talking to them, you know, and they feel us like us Christians do when the Westboro Church comes out and talks about, you know, the fags, you know, and says all these bad words about military people. You know, it's really frustrating when something like this comes up. And then, perfect example, and I don't know if you've seen it, Mac, but Ted Cruz came out with this amazing statement. You know, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's like 10 paragraphs of the true evil. It's not guns, it's not the left, it's not the right. It's ISIS. It's radical Islam. Those are the people that are trying to kill us. Yes, they targeted that gay club. Yes, they targeted us. But at the same time, our real enemy is not you, because, Mac, we don't believe the same what we believe. It's not the left, because they don't believe what I believe. It's ISIS. That's what Ted Cruz talked today. You know, that we need to come together and we need to identify that ISIS is the problem. Then you have Donald Trump.
I completely agree with that. As far as ISIS being a threat that we need to start really taking seriously and coming up with a plan of attack. How are we going to deal with this? I mean, first of all, let me. I don't mean to cut you off here, but I want to play a clip from Obama's speech here and get your response. I got it broken down into 4 sections. And we can kind of analyze each section at a time here and see some of the things, because there's some stark things that I disagree with Obama on and how he handled this. Here's a clip real fast.
We are still learning all the facts. This is an open investigation. We've reached no definitive judgment on the precise motivations of the killer. The FBI is appropriately investigating this as an act of terrorism, and I've directed that we must spare no effort to determine what, if any, inspiration or association this killer may have had with terrorist groups. What is clear is that he was a person filled with hatred. Over the coming days, we will uncover why and how this happened, and we will go wherever the facts lead us.
So we know that he was under investigation by the FBI for connections to ISIS, not 2 times as I previously thought, but 3, and he yelled, Allah Akbar, or however you say that. I'm not Muslim, so I don't know, but he yelled that, and while he was shooting or fighting with the police. Also, ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack, and it's very concerning here that Obama does not want to just call it what it is. I mean, I can't think of a more clear case of Islamic terrorism than this. And first of all, what do you think about that? Should they just come outward and just say what it is, or should they play this game where, we got to be careful, got to make sure we have all the evidence and make sure it's airtight? I think it's pretty airtight. This is like the Chattanooga shooting all over again.
Yeah, and okay, so he wants all the facts, right? I'm going to give you all the facts within 30 seconds. Breaking news. Source to a mock agency. I quote, "The attack that targeted a nightclub for homosexuals in Orlando, Florida, and that left more than 100 dead and wounded was carried out by an Islamic State fighter." That's all you need. That is actually ISIS taking full responsibility for the Orlando shooting. It's not something that we said. It's not something that little Bob said on a news station. It is ISIS sending a press release to the Amaq agency saying 100 dead and wounded was carried out by an Islamic State fighter. I'm sorry, but that is all the evidence that I need to call it what it is.
Yeah, ISIS doesn't. They have a pretty good track record so far of the things that they claim responsibility for, the things that they promise that they're going to do, they do, or at least attempt to do.
Yeah, and then I'm going to take it a little bit further too. I don't know if you know this, but there was 3 days ago there was a list that came out, and out of that list, I think it was. And you guys have to do your research on this one, but I can give you what it was. I think it was between 500 and 600 names on that list. And one of the target areas was Florida. So 3 days ago, a list came out saying we're going to target these people, and one of the locations was in Florida. 3 days later, this goes to today, this happened, and then ISIS takes credit and says this was an Islamic State fighter. I think that's all you need, Mac.
You know, I also heard a story. You're talking about lists. I heard a story where there was a list from ISIS of people that now they're targeting. They want to go after our entrepreneurs like Bill Gates and other big names in industry. And the way that they look at that is basically target the what allows this machine to function. What allows the federal government to function is our economy. And if you go after our economic heavyweights, then our economy will cease to function. Obama continued with his press conference, though, and I have 2 more clips after this, and I want to go into each one of his points here and kind of take these apart. Here's the next one.
We also express our profound gratitude to all the police and first responders who rushed to harm's way. Their courage and professionalism saved lives and kept the carnage from being even worse.
Okay, so this is a point that I want to just illustrate here. Obama is recognizing that good guys with guns came in and saved the day. And this is a point that I don't think that the left is intellectually consistent on. He's admitting that police save lives, therefore good guys with guns save lives, therefore guns aren't necessarily always evil, and as I've been saying for the longest time, guns are merely tools. They can do evil, they can do good, and they're also damn near impossible to remove from society. For me, I think this is incredibly relevant, a relevant statement and admission from our president, who has been extremely anti-gun his entire presidency. What do you think, Chris?
Oh no, and actually this morning, once again, I got a text message from my friend. He was flying from Vegas back to Virginia. And he was telling me, Chris, I always travel yellow. And if you guys are not military, yellow is something that we talk when we talk about our guns, how we travel in our guns. And I was like, oh, man, that's good, because I always travel. If I'm in Florida, I can't travel yellow, but, I always travel ready to go.
Explain to everybody what yellow means.
So for example, you got just like the colors yellow, green, and red. Yellow means that you have a magazine inside your weapon but no bullet on the chamber, and you're ready. All you have to do is charge it, and you're ready to go. Which is not a standard, but it's kind of where it's like the middle ground that people feel happy. So because you don't have a bullet on your chamber, so that's kind of because when you carry on a military installation after security forces, you always carry red. You always ready to go. You are on fire and you got a bullet in chamber. All you got to do is pull the gun and pull your trigger. So when Obama talks about that, and this is kind of something I don't want to kind of give credit to Trump because I don't like the person as my president, But one thing that he got right when the whole, not San Bernardino, the Paris attack happened was if we had at least a couple guns firing the other way, the shooting would have been less deadly. Now, my friend asked me, Chris, but why didn't those people, and just so you guys know, there was about 300 to 350 plus people inside that club. And you, in your mind, if you're a shooter, if you're a gun carrier, you think, well, Chris, that's 350 people versus one person. They could just take them. You also got to think about who these people were. I'm not gonna be like, and you might get offended.
Are you about to stereotype? You're about to stereotype, aren't you?
I'm about to stereotype. It was the gay community, and I'm sorry, that is the truth. But it was the gay community. It's a soft target. Most of these gay communities, they don't carry a gun. They're about love, which is not something bad. But I'm saying, if you're going to shoot a target, you're going to shoot a soft target, a target that is not going to shoot back. What a better target that is than a gay club.
Okay, so let me point something out on this here, because that's incredibly relevant. I would argue that probably not all. It obviously is a generalization or a stereotype, but let's also keep in mind that there are some reasons why we have stereotypes. We've gone into this PC culture where you can't even talk about stereotypes like white guys can't jump or dance. Well, you know what? I can't really jump high or dance. I can't dunk. So I'm 6'1". I should be able to dunk. Damn it. So sometimes stereotypes are they happen for a reason. So let's analyze that stereotype for 1 second. Why would homosexuals be less inclined to carry a firearm? I would think it might have something to do with party affiliation, and most of them probably are Democrats, because seems to be the political home that has been carved out, or they've carved out for themselves, and we know that Democrats are extremely anti-gun. I just want to point out, though, that there are a lot of people in the Libertarian Party that I know, some of them homosexuals, and they go by the saying, "Armed gays don't get bashed." And we talked about this when there was a group of homosexuals who wanted to go up to, and some of these my friends wanted to go up to a gay pride parade at the Capitol, I think in Olympia, Washington. Wanted to go open carry up there, holding signs, "Armed gays don't get bashed," and they were kicked out of the event, denied entry to the event from the organizers because they had firearms. So the left is not friendly to guns, and it seems like there's a large portion of the gay community that is not very gun friendly. But it should be noted that out of the 320 roughly people that were there, according to the reports that I read, apparently none of them had guns, and let's explain why. That stereotype might be true, but what's more important, Chris, is the statute 790.06 in Florida law, section 12A, said a license issued under this section does not authorize any person to openly carry a handgun or concealed carry a weapon or firearm into, in the next section of this, any portion, because they break it down into all the places that you can't carry. And the next section of that is any portion of an establishment licensed to dispense alcoholic beverage for consumption on the premises, which portion of the establishment is primarily devoted to such purchase. So what does that mean? It means that if you sell if 50% or more of your income, of your revenue from an establishment, it comes from alcohol, like a nightclub or a bar, it is essentially a gun-free zone, according to the law in Florida. So that's why all those people didn't have firearms, Chris.
Yes, and that's what I was going to get into, too, is that, again, like I said earlier, Orlando has a strict policy when it comes to gun control, where there is alcohol being served, and it's more, like you said, more than the revenue, than 50% of the revenue. You cannot carry a gun. I get it, because you don't want a drunk person with a gun, which, is that kind of not safe. But at the same time, it kind of backfires like it happened today. Again, what if one person would have been armed? And we could play that all day long. But at the end of the day, we cannot blame a gun. We have to make the person take blame. this was Omar Mateen's fault.
Yep.
He was a distraught person. To give you a background about him, his father came on NBC News and gave a statement that I was surprised and had to send it to my friends at the Blaze, because I was like, if you heard this, please tell me that you heard this. The reason, and this is one of the alleged reasons, and let's put out the alleged reason that he went to this gay club in Orlando, was because he saw two gay men kissing in Miami. Now, if this is true, now we see that this person has a already premeditated that he wanted to do this. Now, I'm going to give you this right here, Max, a little breaking news from the owner of the Pulse nightclub that just released in a statement. He says, like everyone in the country, I'm devastated about the horrific events that took place today. Pulse and the men and women who worked there, and many families for nearly 15 years. From the beginning, Pulse have served as a place of love and acceptance for the LGBTQ community. I want to express my profound sadness and condolences to all who have lost a loved one. Please know that my grief and heart are with you, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse nightclub. So at the end of the day, it's about those people that died and how can we fix it. And I know, Matt, you're going to talk about how we can fix it later in the program. But I think that, in my opinion, the first thing that we should do in how to fix this problem is to get rid of those gun controls. It's time to give back power to us to defend ourselves. Dana Lash said a perfect quote today. She was like, it's time for the gay community to start arming themselves. And just like you said that your friend, they had a sign that says, gay people don't get stomped, something like that.
Armed gays don't get bashed.
Yeah, that is completely true. Just like an armed Chris Cruz will not get carjacked, an armed Chris Cruz will not get robbed.
Exactly.
Because I am armed. It has nothing, and like I said, it was a soft target. One, because it was in the gay community. Two, it was a gun control, a gun-free zone. And three, there was nobody there. There was nobody there that could protect him.
Yep,
Not even the one cop that was there. He tried his best, and sadly, he wasn't as successful as he wanted to, but he at least saved 30 more lives out of the 50, because at the end of the day, 9 police officers were there during the hostage situation. They said, screw this, we're going to save those lives, and they were able to save 30 lives instead of being, now it's 50, up to 50. They haven't said if there's more, but they just released 50 on the second briefing. And I think, and this is my prediction, I have a feeling that it's Mac. You might have the same feeling as me, but I think it's going to be more than 50 by the end of tonight or tomorrow night.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like I said earlier, 53 wounded. I don't know how many of those are in critical condition. Chris, would you mind sticking with this, because we got to cut to a commercial break? I'd love to continue talking with you. I got so much I've actually just wanted to talk with you about anyway. And this event happened. I wish we could have talked under better circumstances, but I really just want to pick your brain. Do you have the time? And I know you're probably pretty tired. You've been up since 2 a.m.
Oh no, yes, I got the time for you, brother.
All right, cool. All right, well, I really appreciate it. And folks, we're gonna go ahead and cut to a commercial break, but I just want to point out we're rounding up the last bit of our first hour, which means that we're going to be terminating the broadcast on 405media.com, the 405media.com. First, I want to give a big shout out to the 405media.com for broadcasting the first hour of our program over there. If any of you would like to listen to the rest of the program, feel free to join us. Go over to OnTheMoveShow.com. Again, OnTheMoveShow.com. That's our hub. That's where we do everything over there. We broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can always catch us live or check out the archive. Our archive is stored. Every single episode of our program is stored on Spreaker.com. That's SPREAKER.com/OnTheMoveShow. And if you catch the show live, I'd love it if you give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, 360-450-5625. We'll be right back after this break, gang. Don't go anywhere.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. This is the beginning of the second hour. I just want to say thank you so much for sticking with us or tuning in. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about the shooting that happened in Orlando, Florida. I have Chris Cruz as our guest on the line. He's been talking about the situation that he's uncovered here on the ground, the breaking news that he has discovered. And we've been going into all sorts of different stuff here about what the left is trying to do with these kind of events and you know, what we can expect. And there's a few other things I want to talk about here. Chris, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I have more from Obama, our president, talking about this incident, and I'm going to go ahead and play the clip. I want to kind of, like I said, I want to continue breaking down what he has said on this incident and discuss the things where I think it's important that we highlight or things that we disagree with. So here's more from Obama.
This is an especially heartbreaking day for all of our friends, our fellow Americans who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. The shooter targeted a nightclub where people came together to be with friends, to dance and to sing, and to live. The place where they were attacked is more than a nightclub. It is a place of solidarity and empowerment where people have come together to raise awareness, to speak their minds, and to advocate for their civil rights.
Okay, so, nothing in this does he actually talk about how within Islam, not all Islam is like this, but the ones who believe in the literal interpretation of the Hadith, the Quran, who think that the Prophet Muhammad, that his words were the revealed word of God, the ones that believe that think that it's okay to kill homosexuals, and numerous other things like treat women like crap, treat them like cattle essentially. They encourage raping and enslaving and murdering infidels, people who don't believe in their religion. This section of the Muslim faith is what is the problem. This part that believes in Sharia law, this part that believes that they can impose their will on people who don't even have the same religious beliefs as them. This is why this section, Obama's talking about it being a place for them to celebrate and things like that, and that's great. But let's mention why it was targeted. Because Muslims, at least the ones who believe in this, ISIS hates homosexuals. And those who believe in Sharia law believe that it's okay to kill homosexuals. So I think it's important that we at least acknowledge why this place was even targeted in the first place. Don't you, Chris?
No, I completely agree. And, Obama, again, it goes back into, he's supposed to be uniting us. He is my president. He is my friend's president. He is your president. I get that the gay community was targeted today. I get it. Because I called that as soon as it happened. I saw it. Either it was a domestic terrorism or it was international terrorism. I called it when it happened. And the problem having with all this is that not only this is going to be used to divide us, not only this is going to be used to politicize and elect somebody that should not be elected, not only this is going to make us even worse, it's going to just take us even back. It's just, every time he talked, I just had a laugh because it was kind of like ignoring the big elephant in the room. It's like we said a little bit earlier on the first hour, where, ISIS took responsibility. We know what ISIS does. We know that ISIS pushes gay people off the roof because they're committing gay acts. We know that they do not condone gay acts. We know that in Russia, a gay person cannot even have a license to drive. But somehow, I just don't get it. Somehow, in America, the gay community is being oppressed. Somehow, in America, the female population is being oppressed. I just don't get it. This is something that I just hit my head in the wall to try to understand their point of view. And when Obama just says, that the gay community was targeted, I don't see this I don't see this just as the gay community being targeted. I see this as everybody being targeted. Because Orlando, guess what Orlando is home to? It's home to Disney. It's home to Universal. It's home to the Amway Arena. It's home to Busch Gardens, not Tampa. But it's home to the main theme parks. And we are a tourist city. We're a tourist state. It's just crazy that why are we still dividing ourselves? It's something that I just don't understand. Maybe I'm just too awake from the system that, for example, if you guys don't believe me, just go hashtag Pulse, P-U-L-S-E, and just read the messages going out there. I got leftist friends here on Facebook. I'm reading their comments right now, and I just really want to just shake them up and be like, really? You're asking for gun control. Do you know what gun control does? For example, I got a friend here, he's a leftist, he's gay, he's in California, which is one of the highest when it comes to gun control, which I think it was a couple of weeks, they said, I don't know if you talked about this, Mac, that they say that a concealed carry is unconstitutional because it's not covered under the Second Amendment.
I heard about this.
Came out of California.
Yeah.
So, it's just, what does that do? It just, once again, it puts our arms into shackles and says you cannot defend yourself. Let the police defend you. Let the police defend you. And I'm not bashing on the police officers, but guess what happened today? The only people that had guns were the police officers. And sadly, even though they're brave men and women, and they saved 30 lives and more by responding, but at the same time, 50 people are dead and 53 people are injured because they waited for the police to defend them. Exactly. It's just not right, Mac. It's not right.
Exactly. Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And specifically, I want to look, because we kind of went off a little bit, but I want to talk about Islam itself and how they view, through the prism of this section of Islam. Now, I'm not saying all Muslims hate gays. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that within this religion, this is the most predominant religion or section of any society that I've ever seen. That is that anti-gay. Yes, we have the Westboro Baptist Church in Christianity, and I'll speak out against them as well. I speak out against anybody spewing hate, and that's what these people are spewing. Now, I'm not calling for people to be silenced. I happen to think that the Westboro Baptist Church is America's funniest traveling comedy show, because you can go and make fun of them and make YouTube videos. I watch YouTube videos about these guys all the time getting made fun of, and it's hilarious. And this is how you deal with speech you don't like. By the way, is not to make it illegal, but to show it to the world and make your argument against it, or ridicule and criticize the people and shame them for having such a terrible opinion. But what we see in these Islamic cultures is that we have entire societies that actually view that view, at least their governments view homosexuals in this way. Like, for example, we have the former president of Iran, I believe his name is Akbar Ahmadinejad, if I'm remembering correct. He says that in Iran, we don't have homosexuals. Here he is with a clip.
Not about criminals and drug smugglers. The question was about sexual preference and women.
مطلقا ما در ایران
In Iran, we don't have homosexuals like in your country. We don't have that in our country. In Iran, we do not have this phenomenon. I don't know who's told you that we have it.
So, I mean, this is the kind of propaganda that they actually spout out and spew. And, of course, they probably don't have people, having gay pride parades in the street because you'll be killed. You'll be thrown off a rooftop. You'll be stoned to death. Your head will be chopped off. You'll be thrown into prison for violating the law and then later executed. And then we hear imams saying things like this. This is a news story that I was recently sent from a good friend of mine named Aaron, where an imam is actually saying that that is a death sentence to be gay, and it's okay to kill gays because it's actually the compassionate thing to do. Here's a clip.
Death is the sentence. I mean, look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about this. Death is the sentence.
Here's a story you won't see anywhere else. A Muslim scholar says killing homosexuals is the compassionate thing to do. And he's just hours away from speaking at an Islamic center right here in Central Florida. Channel 9's Field Sutton's been trying to find out why the group invited him to Sanford.
Off camera, one of the people who is a member here told me that Sheikh Farouk Seskalishfar's speech last night on women's issues was well received and not particularly controversial, but we already know that many people in the Sanford area and around Central Florida are upset about what is coming tonight. Yeah, I'll ask him. Seminole County resident Alan Kornman told Eyewitness News he couldn't believe what a simple Google search turned up about the man speaking at this Islamic center tonight.
It's appalling. In fact, it's inciting violence against gays, and I find that reprehensible.
Dr. Farouk Seskalishfar lives in Iran, according to his online bio, and he's been condemning homosexuals since at least 2013.
Death is the sentence. I mean, look, there's nothing to be embarrassed about this. Death is the sentence.
He admits the Islamic death sentence applies in limited circumstances and is not applicable under U.S. law. But he also says the only way gays and lesbians can be forgiven is to die.
Well, we have to have that compassion for people. With homosexuals, the same. Out of compassion, let's get rid of him now.
We have to have that compassion for people. Out of compassion, let's get rid of them. These people are the Nazis. This is why ISIS is the real problem. These are the threats. These people are the new Nazis. I'm telling you, we have to call this for what it is and face the facts that they have declared a war on our culture, on our society, on our people, and they are extremely oppressive. And it's you remember earlier in the show when I was talking about how religion can be used as a platform for powerful men, as a powerful tool for people who are ambitious and want power. This is how religion can be corrupted, going from more of like a moral guideline to this state-run religion. The religion runs the country. Places like Iran. This is where it can be very problematic. So, what do you think, Chris?
No, I agree, and that's when yesterday. This is funny, not yesterday. I'm sorry. On Friday, I was talking to my Muslim friend because he was doing the whole fasting for spiritual guidance, and I know it's part of the culture to fast. And we're talking about the exact same thing. But here's the difference between the Islamic ISIS radical people and myself and my friend Mo. Is that we, for example, myself, if you read the Old Testament, the Old Testament was kind of an interesting book. It talked about slaving people, it talked about gay people, it talked about incest, it talked about, killing each other. But what happened, the New Testament came in, and it changed everything, and it taught us that love is the answer. We're supposed to love one another and give that Jesus love. Same thing happens in this Muslim religion, where, they talk about love, loving one another, and respecting each other. Just like the Christians and the Muslims, they have that 10% of the 10% that just radicalize, and they just believe on the old version, or the version that suits their belief, or the version that furthers their agenda. And that's when it becomes kind of like a cult. And yes, religion can be used as a bad thing, can be used as a good thing. But just like myself and yourself say the Westboro Church is a bad thing, Muslims, they need to also say that the Islam is a bad thing. Islamic radicals are a bad thing, which most of them are doing it. But I just don't like how, for example, like I told you guys in the first hour, the first press release that was live on TV, we came out strong, saying this was a terrorist attack, and we're not going to let us divide us, and we're going to join together. But then by the second press release, they got in contact with the Islamic Society of Central Florida, and now it wasn't a threat. It wasn't a terrorist attack. So why we do stuff like that? And that's the thing that bothers me when it comes to that kind of religion. And you know what? I just found out too while you were playing those comments. The mosque and the Islamic Society of Central Florida, they're being threatened. And I get it, but that's not who we are, and that's not how we fix a problem. That's how we divide ourselves even more.
Exactly.
Because yes, it was a Muslim named person that killed all those people. But like you said, not all Muslims are killers, just like all Christians are not killers. So that's one thing that we have to remember is this is just a person that believed in radical believed and just hated people. And like I said, his dad even said it. His dad, oh my goodness, and I can't quote anything about his dad because I haven't seen it, I haven't read anything, but I read a couple of headlines. The dad was this full-blown supporter of Al-Qaeda and the terrorist groups. And, came on NBC News and said that the son was mad because he saw two gay guys kissing. And I'm sorry, I'm going to quote my friend here. And it's fun because he said, when I see two gay guys kissing, I just get a cheeseburger. I just don't go out there and killing people. He's a Christian. So that's kind of the things that, we have to start pointing out. And it starts from the top. And once again, I hate doing this, but Donald Trump is right. And I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, and I will never be a Donald Trump supporter. Well, he is right. When you start from the top down saying evil is evil, even if it's something that we don't like to be called evil, because let's play this around. Let's say this was a gay person killing a bunch of Muslims. It's still evil. Evil is evil. And we need to call evil by its name, which is ISIS, the Islamic radicals. They're wanting to kill us.
So, let's look at the most common denominator. If, for example, you were talking about your friend, he sees two homosexuals kissing. He's a Christian. He doesn't go out and kill homosexuals at that point. He goes and gets a cheeseburger. What is the most common denominator? What's the common thread between these shootings that are connected to ISIS, have ties to terrorists? What's the source of this? What causes them to radicalize? And you have to keep coming back to the fact that it's this variation, this section of the religion, the people who believe the literal interpretation, those who believe Sharia law, the Hadith, the Quran, that Muhammad's words were the revealed word of God. This is the issue, and we need to call that out for what it is. If this was happening among the Christian community, if Christians were going out, for example, if the rhetoric of the Westboro Baptist Church was spreading like wildfire across America, and we were having Westboro Baptist Church-inspired shootings that were happening daily, do you think that this would be in the news and people would be giving a frank assessment of what was going on?
Yeah, of course. If the Christian community came out and did what the Islamic terrorists are doing, of course we will be put on the burner. Of course we will be called haters, and we'll be kind of put in the same way, but let's put them on concentration camps. Of course we will. But here's the difference, is even the worst person out of the Westboro church, the worst person in the Westboro church, what is the worst thing that they have done? Riot on a funeral, call gay people faggot to their faces. I think that's it. I think that's like, and I'm just going by memory here. I think that is the worst thing that they have done. And what we have done, we don't know them, and that's not who we are. That's not what the Baptist community is. Because I used to be a Baptist when I was in Puerto Rico. That's not who we are. And it goes back to saying that once you call it what it is, you're an evil cult or an evil organization or an evil entity, then you start removing yourself, like most Christians have done, from the Westboro Church. Just like the Muslims, some of them have removed themselves from the ISIS or the radicals. They have, because they want to be here. But the problem that we're having is, Mac, and I'm going to get kind of a little spiritual here with you, but the problem that we're having here is that we don't know who we are. We are so divided. We don't know who is our brother. We don't know who's our sister. We don't even know who's our neighbor. And I always preach on my show is that if you're a Christian, you need to start showing love. You need to start showing people how to live life correctly. Now, I'm not saying I'm a perfect Christian, because, golly, I'm not near perfect. But even if you're not a Christian, think about this. If I just live my life by the Ten Commandments, now, if you're not a Christian, you still know the Ten Commandments because, they're mostly like our laws. For example, thou shalt not kill, or honor thy father and mother. Or just do the simple golden rule that Jesus taught us in the New Testament. Love one another as I love you. If we just follow those simple little 11 rules that I like to call, or just that one rule that says love one another like I love you, there is no problem in the world. But the problem is that our politicians cannot survive if we just love one another. There has to be that division. And when we are sucking down the government, we forget that we're supposed to love one another. And sadly, what happened today is a perfect example of what happens when you rely on the government, on your local government, or on your police force to protect you. What happened? Sadly, 50 people are dead, 53 are injured. That's what happens when you rely on the government to protect you. And that is not right.
I typically just go by the golden rule philosophy of, treat others as you'd like to be treated. And I think you're right in some respects. And I think what we've gone away from this golden rule. We continue to divide ourselves, and some of these divisions are things that were necessary because minority groups were being oppressed using the government. The government was oppressing certain groups and not giving them equal citizenship, equal rights. Like, for example, African Americans, they were enslaved at one point in our culture, and women weren't allowed to vote. They were essentially considered property as well. And homosexuals were treated differently under law, and it's one of those things where I think the groups that divided themselves in order to get out from oppression, they lobbied and basically organized to get enough support to become equal citizens in the eyes of the law or the government. Then now that they're organized, they aren't following the golden rule. They're not it was the society's fault at that point. They were violating the golden rule, and now that they are equal citizens, now they're not following that themselves. They're not treating other people as they would like to be treated. We look at situations like the cakes that would not be made by the bakers for the homosexual wedding. And they want to force people to do things against their will. And I think ultimately we would just be a better society if we would treat people as we would like to be treated ourselves.
I completely agree. And that's the basis of it. We have forgotten who we are, and we cannot find who we are again until we step away from the government and open our eyes and said, oh man, this is what we have gone. And if you have not seen it today, I've seen it a lot today. I've seen it on Twitter, I've seen it on Facebook, I've seen it on the news. We don't know who we are. We don't know. It's taking us forever to find out where our loved one are or where our neighbor is. It took me about 6 hours to find out who was missing from my circle of friends. 6 hours.
Man,
it's just a big disconnect.
So I want to talk here before we go. We got about 5 minutes left in this segment, and I want to run this by you because I'm never Trump. I'm also never Clinton. I'm never Hillary. I'm not going to vote for her either. And I'm not going to be put in this position where I have to choose between one progressive or another progressive. I think both have their own issues, and in fact, I think the argument could be made that Hillary would be more likely to follow constitutional norms than Donald Trump would, for example. So, it does scare me to think about a situation where Donald Trump. I don't believe anything that he says on policies. I think for the most part he's just telling us what we want to hear. I think he's probably just as much, if not worse, of a progressive than Hillary. That's just my opinion. I'm still not going to vote for Hillary. So I'm in this weird limbo because I don't even really like Gary Johnson either. And I'm curious, what are you doing? What are you going to do?
What am I doing? Well, I am voting, but I will not be voting for anybody in the presidency. Period. I don't align myself with Donald Trump. I don't align myself with Hillary Clinton. And Gary Johnson, my goodness, I don't align myself with him. I thought we had a chance with Austin Peterson, but we don't now. But that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll be voting for my local government body, but under that presidential one, it will be blank.
So, we just concede the presidency. This is a loss. I mean, I think in some respects it can be bad. I'm not necessarily against voting for Gary Johnson. I don't agree with him on a lot of very substantial policies. Like, number one is the open border situation. I think that completely changes the dynamic of the country. You give amnesty to 22 million illegal immigrants that we know about. Yeah. Who knows how many are actually here? And these are of the vast majority of them are voting Democrat. So you've injected millions more Democratic voters into society. We're entering into a one-party system. I think that is going to be detrimental to liberty here in the country if we have just one Democratic Party calling the shots. I just don't see a real solution out of this other than the fact I was looking at recent polls. Gary Johnson is now at 12% nationally, and we talked about before how all he had to do was get up to the 15% national poll recognition in order to get on the national debate stage. Now, I think if I'm voting for lesser of two evils, I'd be going for the lesser of three evils. At this point, I would struggle with voting for Gary Johnson, but there's still a possibility I could vote for him. What is preventing you from pulling the lever for him?
Here's the thing. I vote with principles, and when I sit down myself, I do my research on the person, and then I go along and what do I stand for and what is my belief system. The reason I can't vote for Mr. Gary Johnson is because of his pro-life support, and his open border thing just scares the crap out of me.
You mean pro-choice, right?
Pro-choice, sorry. Pro-choice, and then his open border just scares the crap out of me. How can I just literally just open the door, even open more the door, because the door's already open. Just basically just turn down the door and saying, hey, we're not even put freaking guards on there. You just come in and do whatever the hell you want.
You see, the thing with Gary Johnson, though, on the borders, the only thing that gives me some semblance of hope that he wouldn't just open the floodgates is that he is a constitutionalist. And I think that he will enforce our federal laws. And I think that because the only way that he would be able to justify that is that if it violated the Constitution, which the federal government has the power to regulate immigration. So I believe that he would enforce the laws even if he didn't like them. And I think that he would still continue to cut back on government. I mean, he was a guy in New Mexico that had more vetoes of all the legislation than all the governors of every state combined. So, that's one of the things that does provide some hope for me on that. I mean, I understand your position. You don't want to vote for somebody who's pro-choice, and I understand that. But is there anything other than that's holding you back on this?
Well, that's basically it, because I would love to have a constitutional, a libertarian, and like just take over, and because it will cause a dramatical change to our politics and to our two-system party, and it's a good thing that we have a libertarian at 12%. Same thing happened here in Florida, where we are recognized as a libertarian party thanks to our libertarian nominee for governor, Willie. He did an amazing job. But at the same time, it's just something that I'm not ready to pull a full lever for Gary Johnson. Now, if it was Austin Peterson, oh man, I'll be pulling that lever so quickly, because I've talked to the gentleman, and me and him literally are like the same cloth when it comes to our beliefs and what we believe how the nation should move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I was much happier and comfortable voting for Austin Peterson. I was really hoping he would get the nomination. But, I think that there is some hope with Gary Johnson, because I think he'd still enforce the federal laws on immigration, because he's a constitutionalist. And I think there's even a possibility, potentially, that the Libertarians could get credit for being open borders, and maybe they could win over Hispanics as opposed to them going to to Hillary and the Democrats. But anyway, I'm going to have to talk more about this when we come back from the other side of the break. If you want, you can stick with me, or we can wrap things up. It's your call, man.
We'll go wrap up on the other side. I won't leave you like that.
Okay, all right. We'll be right back, folks, after this break. You guys don't want to go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us through the break. We're still on the line with Chris Cruz. We're talking about Gary Johnson and the Libertarian Party, how we're concerned about voting for Donald Trump, because we're never Trump. We're not going to vote for Donald Trump. We're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And that leaves us with, basically one real option of Gary Johnson. Chris has said that he's going to opt out of voting for the presidency. I kind of want to talk about this a little bit, and let's go over the pros and cons here of Gary Johnson, if you will, Chris. You have a little bit more time on your hands, man?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So some of the things we've already discussed. He's a pro-choice candidate, so if you're voting ideologically, if you're voting on principle, then I understand why you can't vote for that. Austin Peterson was a pro-life libertarian, which is an oddity in libertarian circles, but it is not a settled debate in the Libertarian Party. It should be noted. I personally consider myself to be pro-life. I'm pro-life in that we should err on the side of life and try to have as few abortions as possible. And in doing that, I think we should restrict abortions to where the baby would not be able to survive outside of the womb with modern technology. And I understand that that's an arbitrary number because as technology advances, it's going to be less and less and less. I am completely against, and the majority of Americans are against abortions in the third trimester. Unlike the Democratic Party, Hillary, she wants to have abortions up to you're 50 years old, you can be aborted. But this is something that I am comfortable with coming up with some restrictions. I don't believe that you have a constitutional right to have an abortion. I think, first of all, this is a state's issue, and second of all, we should be able to protect life of an unborn child. The government was only created for 3 reasons: to protect life, liberty, and property. And it could be argued that this is one of the functions that they should be using. So, Chris, we don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything when it comes to abortion, but I think you and I can agree that we could focus this, away from the federal level and leave it to the states at least to decide. Would you agree with that?
Oh yes, for sure. That is one thing that I kind of want, is leave my federal government away from anything that I do, because it makes perfect sense to leave it on the local level. Because let's say Florida supports an abortion, but Texas doesn't. This is, if it was on the level of state level. So guess what I do? I pack my bags and move to Texas. Then Florida starts feeling the pain for all those people moving away from Florida, and then they say, "Wait a minute, we made a mistake," and they change it back. And then get what's happened. Then Florida and then people move back to Florida. So that's the thing that I like about state-run government, where they make their own little laws. And if I don't like it, guess what? There's other 49 states that I could pick up, or there's another 56 states, like Obama says, that I could pick from. So and when you talk about pros and cons about Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, and this is where my list is, and it's still kind of forming because it only forms every time I do research on him. The cons is, he thinks that Christians should be forced to bake a wedding cake, and he also thinks that federal government should be in the marriage business and define marriage for the states. And he supports private prisons, and he supports Social Security. Well, and he wants to reform it, but not get rid of it.
One second. Let's dive into this here, because Gary Johnson on private prisons. Do you think that prisons should not be privatized?
I don't think it should be privatized, because when it comes to private prisons, in my opinion, I worked in a prison, and it was a military-run prison, and my dad worked at a prison in Puerto Rico, so I come from prison workers. That should be something that the state level should have control. It just like we give the state level control over the laws, they should be running it. The privatized, I don't get the whole thing of privatized prisons. That it's just like, for me, I don't know, I've never seen it, so I guess I don't get it, and I guess I'm just too small-minded at this time when it comes to private prisons. I just don't understand. It's like, why are we privatizing prisons? I just don't get that one.
So okay, so for me, I'm for privatization of most everything that the government does. But I think as far as a root cause here, I don't have any problem with the state level government having control over prison systems. But for me, I think we're looking at things in the wrong way, because we wouldn't need so many prisons if we weren't housing these non-violent offenders, many of them drug offenders.
Oh, for sure.
So,
for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's one thing I like about most of your libertarian candidates, the war on drugs is that's like trying to fight the Niagara Falls. It's you can't. There should be no war on drugs.
Well, it's not even it's not even just the drug related issues as far as filling the prisons. Like, for example, let's just give you a quick example here. If let's say I stole your car, Chris, okay, and you're out of a car now, and then I go to jail for stealing your car. Now you have an additional tax burden that you have to pay for my room and board, and it costs roughly, I think, if I remember right, about $20,000 per year per prisoner. So let's say I go to jail for 5 years for Grand Theft Auto. You never got your car back. I sent it to a chop shop. You're out that. You're also out the 100,000, not necessarily you, but that's distributed amongst all the taxpayers that it would cost to house me in jail for 5 years. You're being punished twice, and there's no restitution. What I think we should be doing is having a halfway house where if you've committed a non-violent crime, we should put you in some kind of halfway house where you're only allowed to leave to go to work. And when you go to work, your paycheck goes to paying for the halfway house and all the costs and the staff and things like that. And you should have that little monitoring anklet on you. They track the crap out of you, and you go to work and you pay back your debt to that person. Half your money goes to your room and board and all that stuff, the security, and then the rest of it goes to that person. And you don't get out of jail until you pay that person back. Or at least out of this halfway house until you pay that person back. That's what I think should happen. That's just me.
No, yeah, and that's the thing. Is when I haven't thought of the whole when it comes to the privatized prison, because it's not on my radar. It's not something like, oh man, I'm fighting for this.
Okay, well,
it's just something that I haven't thought about.
Well, then it's not something that's necessarily preventing you from voting for Gary Johnson, right?
No. But that's on the list of like I said, it's just the list that I'm creating. Things that I was like, okay, what do you mean by private prisons? I just don't agree because I haven't thought about it.
Okay.
So that's kind of like when it comes to the list that I have going on.
So I just want the reason why I keep coming to this, and I'm trying to work this out here, because I mean, feel free, I don't want to make excuses, and I don't want to carry water, and I want to stick to my principles. But I'm looking at what the damage here is. Because first of all, I can't vote for Donald Trump because I believe that the outcome will be devastating. And I take him for his word that his biggest issue is trade. That's what he believes, and he wants tariffs, which will start an economic trade war and send us spiraling into a depression. I firmly believe this, and I believe Donald Trump at his word. This is what he's saying he wants to do. So I can't vote for that, and I also think that he's a strongman, dictator waiting to happen. So he's the guy idolizes Vladimir Putin, for crying out loud. So I can't vote for that. And Hillary Clinton, though she's a corrupt and crony individual, and she's been, letting people pay her for influence for decades now. I can't vote for her either. So Gary Johnson, I think, is a very flawed candidate, but there are some things that I'm just trying to look at the overall picture. Like I said, immigration. I think he'll enforce those laws. As far as immigration laws, I don't think he's not going to enforce those laws. As far as abortion, let's focus on that for a second, because abortion is currently legal, and I don't know if that's something that, I mean, it's horrible as far as I'm concerned. I think it's not a good thing. As the Democrats used to say, it should be safe, legal, and rare. And I don't think they look at it this way anymore. They look at it as like a celebration of aborting a baby, which I can't get behind. I cannot say it's a horrible decision that any person has to make, but it certainly should not be celebrated. I don't think that we should condemn mothers who are choosing to do this. I don't think they should necessarily go to jail. I mean, I think that's ideologically consistent if you believe that murder that abortion is murder. I get that, but I also, I just don't think we should be celebrating this, and I also don't think that Gary Johnson on this issue is going to, the outcome is going to change in any way. Abortion will still be legal, and I don't think Donald Trump is going to make it illegal. So is there any way that, I understand you're voting with your principles, is there any way that you could vote for Gary Johnson over that issue, or is that like a complete game changer? You're not going to, it's a deal breaker. You're not going to vote for him simply because he's pro-choice.
About the Gary Johnson, like I said, I haven't, because I barely knew the guy. The only thing I knew about the guy was he was a Republican and he was a governor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I know about him. Then the more I started, thinking about as we head into the Libertarian convention here in Orlando. So I started doing research on him. I know he said that he wants to overturn the Roe versus Wade and then give the states the ban abortion. And he wants to defund Planned Parenthood and end all welfare corporate. So I get that he wants to do all that, but I just, when it comes to him, I don't feel there. When you meet a person, there's something that they're kind of like, there's something about him I don't understand, or there's something about him like I still haven't found that I could be like, oh my God, this is my 100% support. That's where I am with him, because I know 100% I'm not voting for the first two. With him, I still haven't been able to give myself that ease of mind saying, okay, I'll vote for him, it's going to be good, and I'm going to be, when I go back home on November and I lay down in bed, I feel good about my vote. That is the one thing that I stop with him. It's like, I'm still playing the whole devil's advocate on him, just so I could be as clear as I can be when it comes to, for example, it's like, he signed the New Mexico's partial birth control plan. Okay, that is something good. He supports late-term bans and parent notification and counseling. So, it's kind of like, the more I read about him, I'm trying to be kind of like thinking of ways so he could self-qualify. But the more I see his ways, I can see myself voting for him. But at this time today, I don't see myself voting for him because I haven't done as much research I have done of my two previous candidates that I supported.
Okay, well if you have the time, I don't know if you have the time, but I'm just looking for another person to bounce ideas off of, and I respect your opinion. And this is kind of one of the things. We don't agree on everything. I'm not completely against all abortions, all the time. At least by law, I am in principle. I don't like them, but I'm for trying to limit as much as possible as we can do this. And let's, if you have the time, we can go through and just kind of go. I'm on his website right now. We can go through his issues and see the things that we
go for it. So am I.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is his abortion and right to life policy. Gary Johnson has the utmost respect for deeply. I'm gonna skip ahead. Actually, let's. As governor, Gary Johnson never advocated abortion or taxpayer funding of it. He supported a ban on late-term abortions. Okay, I'm for this so far. In his personal life, the governor believes in the sanctity of life of the unborn. However, Governor Johnson recognizes the right of a woman to choose is the law of the land and has been for several decades. That right must be respected, and ultimately he believes is a very personal and individual decision. He feels that each woman must be allowed to make decisions about her own health and well-being, and that these decisions should not be dictated by the government. Further, Governor Johnson feels strongly that women seeking to exercise their legal right, must not be subjected to persecution or denied access to health services by politicians in Washington or elsewhere who are insistent on politicizing such an intensely personal and serious issue. So I don't hear anything about him saying that it would be something that he wants to leave to the states issue specifically, but he is acknowledging that it is a law of the land. So, how do you feel about that? He's not necessarily advocating for abortion, but he's against the funding of it, and he supported a ban on late-term abortions. Could you vote for him just on that one issue?
And here's the thing where I kind of makes me like, okay, who is this guy? Because like he says, he believes that the woman has a right to choose, and that's when I have a problem with, because I get that the whole, for example, like, I'm not against, the whole, condoms or birth controls. I'm not against that, I don't care about that. But in my eyes, as soon as that sperm hits the egg, that is a lie. And if he believes that the woman has the right to choose just right there, that is, she could kill that pregnancy. For my eyes, she's killing that baby. Even So that's when I go into like the whole thing of like, okay, the woman has a right, but let's say the baby is the woman. What happened to that woman or that little lady or that young girl, that young baby you just killed, because the other woman is in the outside? So that's why I kind of, and again, this is the question that everybody asks themselves. That is, pro-life. It's like, because trust me, I try to put myself as a pro-choice. And I was like, okay, maybe, there's how can I see it from their point of view? It's not a baby until it hits 8 weeks. Okay, I kind of understand that, but I really don't understand that. So that's where it comes into this. When people like this says, the right is with the woman and is the law of the land, that's when I'm like, okay, I get it, but I don't get it, because what about the right of that person that is inside that the young lady or that woman? That person also has a right, because it is a person.
So
that's when I start getting like into like, where do I stand, and do I want to support a person that believes that one person has a right to kill another person when they're inside them?
So I'm not. I just want to be clear. I'm not supporting, and I don't support politicians. I don't trust politicians as far as I can throw them. Ted Cruz, he seems like an honorable guy. I don't trust him. I don't trust any. If you want to be president, I don't trust you just for the mere fact that you want to be president. But now I may agree with them on some issues. I may vote for them, but that doesn't. I'm not out there carrying water, and I'm not doing the hero worshiping that I see from many of my friends who are Trump supporters. And this is an issue. Don't make excuses for your guys. Acknowledge what you don't like about them. And here's a point here. Gary Johnson. I'm looking at the presidential debate from 2012. It says Gary Johnson believes that Roe v. Wade is extra constitutional and has wrongly given the government the mandate to intrude on the private lives of Americans. Judges should be appointed who will interpret the Constitution according to its original meaning. Any court that does not follow this original meaning of the Constitution should be revisited. This is particularly true of decisions such as Roe v. Wade, which has expanded the reach of the federal government into areas of society never envisioned in the Constitution. With overturning Roe v. Wade, laws regarding abortion would be decided by the individual states. And this is an exact quote from Gary Johnson. So with this in mind, okay, he's not a perfect candidate. I'm not asking you to if you go out and support him or go knocking door to door for him or anything, or wear Gary Johnson 2016 shirts or something. What I'm saying is that I think this is a similar issue that we talk about. Where can we meet halfway? And on this issue, I consider myself to be pro-life, though I'm not as pro-life as you. I believe we should protect life. I don't know where life begins, and I think that any time that we say it, it's going to be arbitrary. Unless we're just completely playing it safe and saying, at conception. And I can understand the debate there. We can have that debate, and that's great. And I think that debate should be left to the states. Which Gary Johnson apparently does too. He's not for taxpayer funding of it, and he's not necessarily advocating abortion. So, on this, I think he's a candidate that will lead you closer to what you want on this. Would you agree with that, Chris?
I completely agree with you. No, I completely agree with you. And like I said, Gary Johnson is the guy that is it is kind of like the lesser of two evils, because even though he has people say, oh, but Chris, you were supporting Cruz because he was your perfect candidate. No, he was not my perfect candidate. Exactly. He was never my perfect candidate. Neither was Marco Rubio, neither was Rand Paul, or Scott Walker, or Ben Carson. My goodness, the guy sat in front of, shook his hand, and interviewed him twice. He was not the ideal candidate, but it had something I could put my back on. They had like that one principle that I could be like, hey, that is something I believe, and then I could grow into it. Like I said with Gary Johnson, I've not sat down and do the research. Every time I add something to the list, is something that I found online. Then I do more digging into it, and then I find like I just quoted a couple of quotes from my notes and from his website, and from the interviews that he has done. So, and then one thing that also bothers me about Gary Johnson is he's the person that, you know, there's something about him I still haven't found, but I believe there's something there like I'm not gonna like, and that kind of motivates me to keep looking deeper into Gary Johnson. Yes, he will be the ideal candidate to vote for out of Hillary and President Trump, and Trump. But at this time, it's like I want to know more, and hopefully, and I'm crossing my fingers and I'm praying that Gary Johnson does get that above the 15%, and he brings that extra spice to the platform, to the main stage, because not a lot of people know about us, the Libertarian Party. Not a lot of people know. Well, actually, they do know us, but they think we're just that person that just believes in, you know, smoking weed and, you know, just doing whatever we want in the backyard, you know. But it's really interesting to see what Gary Johnson is doing. Actually, it didn't start with him. It started with the whole movement of the Libertarian movement, you know, starting getting bigger in the state level, how it should be, and then growing into, hey, we have a couple, because I was at the convention here in Florida, you know, the Libertarian movement, I didn't know it was growing so bigly, so quickly when it comes to something that is part of the government. So I'm really excited about it. But I see Gary Johnson, and I don't want to talk bad about the gentleman, but I don't see him getting elected. But I see Gary Johnson doing what Willie did here in Florida, was bring the Libertarian Party into the light and break that 15% to get recognized in the main audience and to give that extra choice and to break the two-party system. I am well happy for Gary Johnson to do that, and I want Gary Johnson to do that.
So I think that he's actually... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. But at the same time is, you know, I don't want to say, oh, I'm not voting for him because he can't make it. But like I said, is at this time, there's something about him that I can't say Chris Cruz is going for Gary Johnson.
And I feel, and I'm with you on that. You know, I'm trying to work it out myself, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this. You know, I think that he's actually trying to pander a little bit to both sides, like the never Trump, those on the left and those on the right, like ourselves. You know, I think he's pandering. Like, for example, he said this in a recent interview about Donald Trump's comments, and this was before. Excuse me. This was before his comments about the Mexican judge. This was his stance on the wall, I believe, and his immigration policies, which I'll just play the clip. Here it is.
In the debate, last night in the debate, you said you didn't want to comment on Trump, but then you went on to list a number of things about his policies that you think are just wrong. How can we, or what can we expect from you in terms of taking him on in the general?
Taking him on the fact that he wants to deport 11 million illegal immigrants, taking him on wanting to build a fence across the border, that's nuts. Taking him on when he says that Mexicans are murderers and rapists, it's incendiary as a border state governor. It's incendiary to 50% of the population of New Mexico that he's talking about Hispanics, Mexicans in this way when the absolute opposite is true.
Is that going to be a big part of your strategy?
Absolutely. Call him out on what is really racist. It's just racist.
Okay, so I don't... You know, first of all, I completely disagree. The wall, I'm against the wall. I'm not really for a wall, but you know I don't think it's racist, and I certainly don't think it's impossible. Like Gary Johnson believes it's not impossible to build a wall across the border. Look, there's a Great Wall of China. They did that with a lot less resources than we have. And you know,
and it's not racist. And that's one thing. The whole pandering, because the Speaker of the House did the same thing. You know, and it's something that, you know, again, I'm not a Trump supporter, but it was kind of like, let's bag on Trump, because everybody did it as soon as he said that. You know, it started with the Speaker of the House, and then after that, everybody else was saying the same thing that the Speaker of the House was saying about Donald Trump being extra racist when he said those things about the judge.
Well, See,
or the wall.
That's something I disagree with you on, because the fence I don't think is racist, and I know Gary Johnson took Trump's words out of context. I'm not one to defend Trump at all, but I'm call it like it is, man. If he was saying that some people coming across the border are murderers. Some people coming across the borders are rapists. Yeah, it was taken out of context. But as far as the conversation he had about the judge, how the judge needed to recuse himself simply because he's an American citizen, first of all, before anything else, but his heritage, his lineage goes back to Mexico, and Donald Trump thinks he should be treated differently simply because of his race. I think, as Speaker Ryan said, and usually I'm not agreeing with Speaker Ryan, but on this instance, it is textbook racism, I think, to treat someone differently based upon their race. I think that is absolutely racist. That is the definition of racism, is to treat people differently. So, I could see that, but this statement was made back in May. This is way before the conversation was going in this direction, and Gary Johnson's obviously paying the price for it. But you were talking about some other things that bother you about Johnson. Before we wrap this up here, I want to talk about this: how he threw out Austin Peterson's gun after he was giving it. Did you hear about this?
Oh. Did I not hear about this? Oh my God! You know how many text messages I got because of that? And okay, I want to tell you what I think of it. I think it's just something just blown out of proportion, in my view. I see how it was something nice and thoughtful, what Austin Peterson did to Gary Johnson.
So let's explain that to the audience real fast. As a token of good faith, Austin gave Johnson a replica of George Washington's flintlock pistol to let him know that he has Austin's full support in the general election. This is after Austin Peterson had lost the nomination. So tearing up on stage of the convention floor, Austin said to Gary, as he presented him with the pistol, "You have my sword and you have my gun." This is an article on libertyhangout.org titled "Gary Johnson Shoots Himself in the Foot, Throws Out Austin Peterson's Gun," posted May 30th, 2016. So continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to give the backstory.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. I just, and it's my, again, because I'm worrying about other things other than kind of this. But in my opinion, I just think it was a horrible thing for Gary Johnson to do, because here is the leader of the Libertarian Party, and here is Austin Peterson, out of token of good faith, saying, "I have your back, I will be supporting you." Something that just like Glenn Beck did with Ted Cruz when he gave him the George Washington compass. That's something that it's like a token of, here's something that I believe in, and I'm willing to back you up on this. And it's completely wrong what Gary Johnson did, and he should have not done it. But I just think it was just blown way out of proportion when it comes to kind of priorities. Yes, he did something bad, but, I kind of done something like that where somebody gave me something and I just threw it away because, it was not something for me. The best way to do it was behind closed doors. Gary Johnson pulled Austin Peterson and said, "Hey, buddy, I love this thing," or, "Hey, I don't like it. Do you mind taking it back?" Or not even doing that, or just donate it to something else and make it, play the game. Donate it to kind of like a charity if it's worth money, or just put it in the office. You probably have a bunch of crap in your office that I have a bunch of crap in my office that I don't use, or that presents that have been given to me by listeners. I'm not going to throw it away.
Why do you think he threw it away? What do you think is the reason behind that, or do you have an opinion on that?
I don't, because I did not think of it. I think it was the stupidest thing that people were asking my opinion about it. I was like, he just threw something that was given to me, and it's like me throwing away my plaque of accomplishment in the military. So, okay, whatever.
So you think it was basically just like a careless, like he was just like, well, I don't have a place for this. I'm just going to throw it out. It wasn't like a disrespect for guns or Austin Peterson personally.
I don't think so. And if he did, then again, it's not something you want to see from a leader of any party. Because let's say Cruz was the leader of the Republican nominee, and he throws something that Donald Trump gave him. I would be like, okay, dude, not something you're supposed to do, but who cares? It's something, it was a symbolic gesture of, hey, here's my support, and I'm right with you, but at the same time, is it a slap in the face? Yes. Is it important? No. Maybe did he do it on purpose? Maybe. But then again, it's just a gun. I don't think he was like, F the Second Amendment. I don't support guns. I don't think he meant it like that. Or F Austin Peterson. I really don't think he meant it like that either. I think it was just something like when you get something that you don't like, okay, boom, whatever. And he tried to make a statement. Again, it's not something that should not be like, oh my God, this guy just threw a gun. But at the same time, it's not something that, Gary Johnson, if he did it on purpose, he's not something that he should be doing as the leader of the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, I think it was definitely in bad taste. And that's where I stand on this too. I think that more than likely he just didn't want it and threw it away, and that's what people do when they throw away things, is they didn't want it.
Yeah.
Where I do, I am a little bit concerned is he was trying to worry about the optics, and afterwards he tried to offer the Peterson campaign, Austin Peterson, $500 for his gun back because somebody witnessed him throwing it into the trash, Gary Johnson throwing the gun into the trash, and then they retrieved it, took a picture of it, and gave it back to Austin Peterson, and Austin Peterson wouldn't sell him back the gun for $500. So, it's, I don't know, I think it's not necessarily a policy issue, but it gives you some insight into the man. So okay, we talked about abortion. Just on the let's not look at anything else. Let's just on the abortion issue. He's not to support. He's not for supporting taxpayer funding of it. So Planned Parenthood would not get funded by the federal government under a Gary Johnson administration if he had any choice in the matter. And again, he's not going to be the imperial president. With the executive orders, I wouldn't assume based on his policies. And he's very likely he is for leaving this to the states. So this is actually something that's bringing it closer to what you want on abortion. Just to confirm, could you pull the lever for him and only pull the lever? I'm not asking you to support or campaign for him on just his stance on abortion alone.
So if he supported my belief?
No. Because what he's doing is he's working towards what you want, not necessarily in the right way, but without considering anything else, all the other information, just abortion. It's still working towards what you'd like it to be. I think as far as going towards a states' right issue, he personally thinks it's a pro-choice issue. But he also is acknowledging that less government should be involved in the process as possible and leave it to the states. So on that alone,
here's the thing. Here's the thing on that, because I believe if we start getting, for example, get rid of the control when it comes from the government, and we start giving that power back to the people get to decide what the heck happens. So that means that the majority of people that do not support abortion, it will pass in the state level much quicker than it will pass on the national level or federal level. So I think, yes, that is the right idea, and I'll be able to pull the lever for Gary Johnson if he sticks by that and says, you know what, guys, you have control. For example, Florida, you want abortion to be illegal, then you go right ahead. You make that abortion illegal because your people have spoken, and we're going to respect that. New York, you want to have abortion to be legal, you go right ahead and do that.
And I agree with you on this. I feel comfortable on that because he's working towards kind of the same thing. He's saying he's pro-choice, but he's wanting to get the federal government out of the way and leave it to the states. I'm for that. No taxpayer funding for abortions too. I'm for that. If you want to have an abortion, that should come out of your own pocket. Let's have your own personal responsibility. It's not something that other people who are fundamentally against abortion should be forced to fund. So I have an issue with that. So let's go to immigration. His next thing. This is the major thing that he stands for. This is on his website, GaryJohnson2016.com. He says he's served in a border state. Gary Johnson understands immigration. He understands that a robust flow of labor, regulated not by politics but by the marketplace, is essential. He understands that a bigger fence will only produce taller ladders and deeper tunnels, and that the flow of illegal immigrants across the border is not a consequence of too little security, but rather a legal immigration system that simply doesn't work. Militarizing the border, bigger fences, and other punitive measures espoused by many politicians are all simplistic solutions to a problem caused by artificial quotas. bureaucratic incompetence, and the shameful failure of Congress to actually put in place an immigration system that matches reality. Governor Johnson has long advocated a simplified and secure system of work visas by which willing workers and willing employers can meet in a robust labor marketplace efficiently and economically. Aspiring immigrants would undergo a background check, pay taxes, and provide proof of employment. Making it simpler and efficient to enter the U.S. legally will provide the greatest security possible, allowing law enforcement to focus its time and resources on the criminals and bad actors who are, in reality, a relatively small portion of those who are today entering the country illegal. And you know what? That statement itself, I actually agree with. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yes, I do. No, yeah, I do agree with that statement. And, and this is a problem, like you said, I think it was a couple minutes ago, about Gary Johnson. He say, oh, it's not feasible to create a wall. It's not feasible to do. Of course it's feasible. The problem with immigration is that legal immigration takes way longer and costs thousands of dollars out of your own pocket, which is, I'm not saying that it should be free, but, it should be, we should try to market our legal immigration, make illegal immigration harder. How do you make illegal immigration harder? Well, sadly to say, Donald Trump is right by creating a wall. Not something that Mexico is going to pay for, but something that shows, hey, you can't get in on this through here. And I'm going to take this into further. I believe we should have a wall with a freaking lake and sharks with lasers and, booby traps and landmines and razor wires and drones. And I believe we should have, and I don't think it's kind of hard to ask, but we should have one of the best defenses when it comes to defending our southern border.
I won't disagree with you on that. I am very, very pro legal immigration, but at the same time, I understand that we should be using immigration as a tool of who we allow, and we should bring in people who are going to benefit our society, like entrepreneurs who are going to start jobs, like people who are going to fill positions that we cannot fill ourselves. So I don't think that we should just allow any unskilled labor to flow across the border, and his lack of wanting to actually enforce our current although I think he might actually enforce our current laws because he's a constitutionalist, so even though he may not necessarily agree with them, I think he would still enforce the border security laws, and that could be a good thing. It can't possibly be worse than what we have right now with the Obama administration.
It's true.
I can't imagine him trying to force through executive order some kind of amnesty. What do you think?
No, and again, and that's one thing that I like about a Libertarian candidate, because we know, worst case scenario, holy crap, he's going to support the Constitution.
Yeah.
That is the worst case scenario that can happen if it's a true Libertarian candidate. Is the worst case scenario is like, oh man, he's going to make everybody follow the Constitution. I can get it. But the problem having is, and this is not just with Gary Johnson, this is with every single candidate that I vote for, is we're all humans, and we're all easily we can easily be manipulated to do other things, or we could say something right now and say something later. For example, it's like Gary Johnson, he does this whole thing where he's feeding to both sides of the fences, which is one of the things I liked about Ted Cruz, which he didn't do that. He didn't say, he tried, yes, to bring in other people to the platform, but he didn't cater to both sides of the aisle. He said, this is what I stand on. If you don't like it, well, screw it. It's still what I stand on. But you're more than welcome to support me. That's kind of the attitude I like. I don't like the attitude of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, where they say, oh, Donald Trump said this about you, and I love you. Or Hillary Clinton said this about you, but I love you. You're playing both sides, and you speak out of both sides of your mouth. That's one thing I'm scared of. And, another thing that is interesting to see, with Gary Johnson, like the person of freedom. It's like, let me be me, and I won't bother you. That's kind of the thing that I always talk to people when it comes to what I believe. Oh, well, Christian, what do you believe? Well, basically is, hey, I do me and you do you. You, Mac, you want to worship a donkey, a gold donkey in your backyard, and you sacrifice, 10 dead animals every single day. You go right ahead. let me sacrifice my 10 animals to this golden, ox. Let me do me and and you do you. That's kind of the word. I just want to live like that. And again, it goes back to, I'm so happy that Gary Johnson is at 12%. I see him getting that 15%, getting himself into the platform, because most of these losers that are supporting Trump, Hillary, and Bernie Sanders, because we're talking about, but Bernie Sanders still thinks he got a chance. All these people they're like, I want free stuff, free this. When they see a platform that is a true conservative platform, and I hope Gary Johnson shows that true libertarian platform in the stage when he makes it, they will see that, oh crap, the Libertarian Party is a party we're supposed to be shooting for, because they're the only party as of right now that I see that believes about 80% of what I believe when it comes to the Constitution. They believe that the Constitution should be the governing document, which that's how it was printed on paper. So that's why I'm happy that Gary Johnson will be able to get. I'm telling you, I'm speaking it with faith. I know he will get that 50% support, because most of the people that are not voting for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton are looking for that third candidate, and they're in kind of my boat and your boat, saying, well, Gary Johnson is the best of two evils, because now we do have a chance of kind of bringing that platform into the light. The one thing that I want to say to all you libertarian listeners is, if you want the conservative people or the conservative libertarian people to join your party, just let us figure it out. And it's just like it's like with religion. Live your libertarian life, show us that it's a good life, then we will mimic yours. Because that's what I tell people. It's like, oh, what are you? I'm like, I'm just a constitutionalist, libertarian, conservative. Oh, what is that? It's like, you live I tell you, this is what I live every single day. They look at me, it's like, oh my God, that's a choice? I'm like, yes, that is a choice. And that's the best way we could start growing those numbers when it comes to the Libertarian Party.
I would love to hear Gary Johnson make this argument that, look, I am the middle of the road choice for you Bernie Sanders supporters. I'm making the moral argument of why my case is moral. This is what Bernie's done this whole time, and he could win over, I think, a lot of people on the left on this immigration issue.
Yes, you can.
And by the way,
yes, you can.
There was a recent poll I was looking at that showed that it dispelled the myth that a libertarian candidate would take only votes away from Donald Trump. It actually showed that Donald Trump and Hillary both had the same amount of percentage of votes lost when you included Gary Johnson into the poll set. So it is a myth that a vote for Gary Johnson or Libertarian is a vote for Hillary Clinton. That's bullcrap, because he's taking from both sides, and there's a real shot that he could get on the stage. And I think that if he's on the national debate stage, he gets 15% on the polls, gets on the national debate stage, people actually hear libertarian ideas, he's going to seem like the most reasonable person up on the stage, I think. I mean, there's a lot I don't like about him. I don't like how open border he is, but I think that we could survive that. And even if he doesn't get elected, we're screwed either way with both of the other choices. I don't want my name attached to Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. I refuse to have my name attached to those people. We may benefit down the line from getting exposure for libertarians through Gary Johnson being on the national platform. We may actually win. I mean, it's possible. He may take from both sides, because we've never in our history had an election where both candidates were hated as much as they are now. So this is going to be the most lackluster turnout. I was reading reports too, is that that people were talking about how Donald Trump he's received the most votes out of any candidate in a primary ever in history. And then I found another study that was saying that is very likely because Donald Trump was pulling out GOP voters who don't typically vote in the primary but are. So it's not like he got new voters to the Republican Party. He's actually getting people who are historically Republican who vote in the general to vote in the primary. There's a real possibility that the expanded tent that he's claiming that he's going to do, which I've been saying, I don't believe that Bernie Sanders supporters are going to go and vote for him. I don't think that an average progressive is going to vote is going to vote for Donald Trump the way that we're being told that he's going to expand it. Why would you vote for Donald Trump if you have a choice between him or Hillary Clinton? If you're a progressive, she is a progressive, admittedly, and he is one that won't admit it.
Yeah, and then I honestly think that out of spite, and that is my opinion, that the Bernie supporters will jump to the right and vote for Donald Trump just not to give it to Hillary Clinton.
I do not believe that at all. I mean, Donald Trump is the antithesis of what they believe. He's a billionaire. They hate billionaires. All Bernie talks about is billionaires, billionaires, billionaires. We're going to get them fat cat billionaires. That's like his whole platform. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. And the fact that they think he's a racist because of all the stuff that has been said about him and the Mexico stuff. There's no way. In substantial numbers, they're going to come out and vote for him. They probably just won't vote, or I think they're going to vote for Gary Johnson because of how they may see him as an alternative. And I think, as I've been saying, ever since Donald Trump, was the presumptive nominee, there is plenty of room in the Libertarian Party for conservatives. We can move towards goals that maybe not maybe we don't agree on everything, but we might move it in the right direction. Like you and I were talking about on the abortion conversation. You're not pro-choice like him. You don't like the fact that he's pro-choice, but at the same time, he would bring it to the state level and get rid of federal funding for it. And hey, that's a good compromise. I think we can move in that direction. We gotta be like the progressives in that we move towards what we want progressively. We continue to chip away at the Leviathan that they've constructed that restricts our freedom and is involved in every aspect of our life.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, when Gary Johnson gets to 15%, I think we'll see a twist. Sadly, it's not going to happen in this election unless, a meteor comes and hits all of them. Maybe we see something happen. But I think for the next election and for the next midterm election, I think we're going to see a big numbers when it comes to Libertarian candidates getting elected. If and when Gary Johnson gets on stage, and the only way this is going to happen is if Gary Johnson actually does what a Libertarian candidate should do, is present their platform, which is the Constitution of the United States, and tell them this is what we should be believing, and start presenting and living that libertarian life. He has, for the next two elections, the midterm and the general, we will be able to see a lot of Libertarian candidates get elected and pave the way to people like Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Austin Peterson. Because Austin Peterson, when I found who that guy was, I fell in love with him. I was like, this is my second horse on the race. Uh-huh. And I'm telling you, Gary Johnson has and I hope he's not stupid and he actually takes it seriously and actually presents what he talks about, the whole founding fathers and how they saw the national government. So I just hope he actually does that.
So, this is a dark horse election. I don't think that the Libertarians are going to win. I think that right now, as it stands right now, I'm conflicted about voting for Gary Johnson, but I think I can see myself pulling the lever for him. But I think that he has the same chance of getting, winning the presidency as Donald Trump had getting the GOP nomination. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's very minimal chance. But somehow, this is a dark horse election. Things have happened this year that no one predicted, no one could have expected to happen. No one thought that the reality TV show host Donald Trump was going to be the presumptive nominee of the GOP. That no one thought that the 30 or 40-year Democrat was going to win the Republican nomination. No one could have predicted this. So who knows what could happen? But I do know that there is plenty of room in the GOP. In the Libertarian Party for Ted Cruz conservatives, people who are never Trump, and people who don't like how much involvement the federal government has in our lives on the left and the right. And I think there could be some coalescing that could get behind Gary Johnson if he manages to get to 15% and gets on that national debate stage. But that's just my opinion. Do you think I'm right on that? I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think he has any chance whatsoever of winning the nomination?
No, Gary Johnson. No, he does not. I'm sorry. Like I said, I think Gary Johnson's going to do the same thing that happened here in Florida with Willie Scott Willie. I think his name. I forgot his first name, but I know it's Willie's his last name. It was that Willie was able to bring the spotlight to the Libertarian Party and was able to make Florida recognize the Libertarian Party as a third party. And I think that's what Gary Johnson is going to do, which is good. It's not something like, it's not something that we should be like, oh man, he didn't do anything. It's good because, again, it kind of goes into the destruction of the two-party system. You don't want to have this whole two-party system and just have the GOP and the DNC decide who we want to have as president. That's not how it works. So with Gary Johnson, his role, to be honest, the role that I see him on this election is to bring the Libertarian platform into the national stage. And if he does this correctly, that means that other people will start doing the research. Because I still have a little faith in this nation. Even though I've lost a lot of friends and a lot of co-workers to the Trump train, I still believe that once the undecided people see the Libertarian candidacy and the Libertarian platform, and they see it's not this all, part of a system that just wants to smoke weed and just carry guns. Once they see that that's not who they are, and they actually believe on something that we all should believe, which is the Constitution, they will actually start voting for those Libertarian candidates and start disrupting the system. Because and if you think about it, Mac, that's all Bernie Sanders people want. That is all the Donald Trump people want. They want to destroy the system. They want to cause a change, a kind of revolution into the system. Destroy, especially Donald Trump people. They just want to burn the beat down. That's all they want to do. They just want to burn it down and say, you know what? We start from scratch. That's what they want to do. And the Bernie Sanders people are like, you know what? We want a revolution.
Okay, so
we already have that.
We did. Our founders already bled for that revolution. So, I think that's a revolution we should be advocating for. In fact, I wrote a piece this week about revolution. It was an open letter to those calling for revolution. I was going to read it on this show, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to actually come up with a wild prediction here. Now, let me ask you just a real simple question here. Do you think that people, when they see evil, they know it when they see it, and they are typically against it, in the majority against it?
Okay, ask that one more time. Kind of lost you.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I asked that kind of weird. All right, I asked that like Yoda. When people see evil or see bad things, as a majority of people, when they see that, are they typically against it? Would you say that, yes or no, that they're against evil when they see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
when they see evil, they say like that is evil.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that is what I think we're going to see, and one of the reasons why this is a dark horse election. We have the Bernie antagonists that are going to the Trump rallies and starting riots. These people are not protesters; they are riot starters, and that needs to be clear. And I'm already hearing talk and seeing the postings on Craigslist and things like that, where they're planning huge riots in Cleveland, and they're paying protesters $15 an hour. By the way, the reason why they're doing $15 an hour is they've been called out before because they only wanted to pay like $8 an hour to paid protesters.
That's funny.
And they weren't upholding their own standards, of the minimum wage $15 thing. So they're paying these protesters $15 an hour in Cleveland at the GOP convention. It's going to be a huge riot. There's going to be a lot of destruction. I'm predicting right now. With this, people, as you said, people, when they see evil, they're typically against it. And I think what people are going to see is they're going to see things that they don't like from both sides. How Donald Trump will react to this. The supporters of Donald Trump, I believe they're the kind of people that if struck, they will be struck back. And I think we cannot be like the Black Panthers. We cannot advocate violence. We have to advocate for peace and nonviolent resistance. So we have to be, as Dr. Martin Luther King believed, we have to be the people that can take a punch to the face and not swing back. We cannot be those people, because we'll be underneath the microscope if we are. You see how the left is twisting and manipulating the media, calling these rioters protesters. But I guarantee you, if a Trump supporter punches one of these people, I mean, look how bad they were demonized when there was violence at these rallies. How people were being pushed out of the rallies, protesters were being pushed out of the rallies. At this point, they were disruptors, yes, but they were just protesters. They hadn't crossed that line to being rioters. But now they have, and I think they'll continue to do that. And I think when people, the undecided voters, will see this, I think they're going to have distaste for both sides. They're going to have distaste for the rioters. I think they're going to have distaste for the Trump supporters. And I'm looking at the polls right now. Back May 24th, this poll was conducted between May 24th and May 30th. Johnson had 5%. That was a Quinnipiac poll. And then Rasmussen, May 31st to the June 1st, he had 8%, so he went up 3 points. The 31st to the 5th of June, this is IBD /TIPP polls, he went up to 11%, so again, another 3-point raise. From the 6th to the 5th of this, from the 5th to the 8th of this month, Fox News has him at 12% now. He went up another point. I think that there is a real possibility, now a small possibility, a lot of things have to go wrong for both candidates, but I think that there's a chance that he could continue to keep going up and up in the polls. I mean, Donald Trump in this last poll, the Fox News poll, is at 36%. 12 and 36, I mean, we got a long way till November. A lot can happen. You still don't think that Johnson could have any chance whatsoever of winning?
Nah, I'm sorry to be kind of like the devil's advocate, but I honestly don't. Like I said, it honestly has to be a meteor just come down and just destroy both of them, or even more. Because here's the thing, and the reason I say that is because Donald Trump could say the worst thing in the world, and people support him. Donald Trump could say the best thing in the world, and people support him. It's just with him, he's literally like Teflon. You throw something at him, it just slides right out. From what I've seen in the last, holy crap, since this whole election started, anything that was predicted was like, oh, well, Donald Trump said this about women, he's not going to get support. He just gets like double the support. He gets attacked. Well, he doesn't get attacked, but somebody tries to attack him in a rally, he gets support. A rally happened in a riot goes ballistic crazy right before the California riot. He gets more support. He talks about, his penis on Fox News, I think it was, or one of the debate things. He gets more support. He bashes on Marco Rubio. He gets more support. I just don't get it. It's just, I think this election is so freaking weird that I think, once again, I think Donald Trump is right. He could come on Fifth Avenue, kill a bunch of people, and he will not lose any single vote. Because he has tapped into it. He has tapped into something that I don't even know what it is. I don't even think it's no longer just anger. I don't think, when people say, oh, Donald Trump has tapped into the anger of the people, I just don't even think he's tapped into anger. I think he's just tapped into something that nobody can even say what it is, because we have never seen this before.
I think the Trump phenomenon, as a lot of people call it, I think the tapping into that he's done, yeah, he's tapped into anger, but according to what I'm reading, he's tapped into the anger of typical general GOP voters. voters that typically vote for the GOP in the general. And there's obviously a lot more of those than GOP voters that vote in the primary. So I think what we're seeing is, first of all, he drove a wedge in the GOP between conservatives and his supporters. So I think he's already diminished that GOP general audience. The GOP is split between ideological conservatives and Trump supporters. And maybe some ideological conservatives are in there carrying water for Trump, somehow justifying it. Like many of my friends that I hear them, they make excuses and things like that. But I think what you're going to see as we get further and further into the general is the conservatives out there. We're looking for a place. We're looking for a home. And again, I think that the more that they see Gary Johnson, especially if he's on the nomination stage, he's going to pull people from the left, like the Bernie Sanders supporters that feel ostracized and don't want to vote for Hillary. And because he's making the moral argument, he's just making the opposite case that what Bernie Sanders was making. But at least he's making the moral argument. And secondly, Donald Trump, I mean, as things go, I think he's going to continue to ostracize, and yeah, they call him Teflon Don, and I agree, nothing can happen to him as far as him losing support, but he's not going to lose support against, from his typical GOP voters who vote GOP no matter what down the line. They're party line voters, and the more that he was exposed in the news, the more people, more GOP supporters saw him. And we're like, hey, well, that's my candidate. I'm going to back my candidate no matter what. And I think this explains the Trump phenomenon. I think that this is it's been my opinion from the beginning that Donald Trump is going to lose. I've said it from the beginning. A vote for Donald Trump in the primary was a vote for Hillary Clinton in the general. But where I stand now is that if, in this dark horse race, if Donald Trump continues to lose control of his campaign, as we're seeing now with this whole Mexican judge thing, this is sticking and this is hurting him. He's seen a drop in the polls. That poll I was just looking at here, he went from being at, Donald Trump, the first poll, it was Hillary 40, Donald Trump 38. Then it was the next one, Hillary 38, Donald Trump 37, Hillary 39. Oh, actually, I'm wrong about this. Disregard it, because he was 39, 35. Now he's 39, 36. So, he's still behind Hillary. As I'm saying, Hillary's beating him on this. And I just don't think he's going to win, and I think his support is going to continue to erode. I think Hillary Clinton's support is going to continue to erode, especially as they both continue to be in the spotlight. And I think we're going to see a shift here if all the stars align, or the meteor, as you say, hits. I'm not willing to eliminate that this could be a year for a Libertarian candidate to win. I mean, you disagree. I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah. I honestly, because here's the thing. Okay, let's say I just don't see him winning over Hillary. Yes, he could win over Donald Trump, but then again, I just really don't see it. It's like it's going to be really hard for him. I'll feel bad for him, And then if he does it, hey, more power for him. It'll be fun. It'll be one of the best underdog kind of story when it comes to the election. But as of right now, June 12th, 2016, I just don't see any possibility of him gaining that much support.
See, I guess
that much away from both of them.
I guess where you and I disagree on here. First of all, Gary Johnson, if he does well enough, I can't remember the amount he has to get, but he could get matching federal funds. I don't know if he ideologically opposes getting matching federal funds, but he might take that, which could help him with his platform. If he gets on the national debate stage and does well, he could talk to both sides. But where you and I are disagreeing here is that I think that Hillary Clinton is the most incredibly weak candidate we've had in a phenomenally long time. First of all, Hillary Clinton under criminal investigation by the FBI for her server gate, where she did receive classified information up to several top secret emails on this unsecured private email server in an attempt to obfuscate and skirt what she's doing in the Clinton Foundation, which was selling influence in the White House. I mean, this is she. I don't know if she'll go to jail on that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think as this thing continues, I mean, it's becoming more and more clear that she's caught with the hand in the cookie jar, and she was trying to avoid the Freedom of Information Act requests. That's why she wanted to control the server. That's why she deleted 30,000 emails. That's why she did this. Otherwise, it wouldn't have mattered. She put national security behind her concern over people finding out what she was doing in the Clinton email. In the Clinton Foundation. And as I said, she was selling secrets, or selling not secrets, influence. But let's point out here, Hillary Clinton is a very weak candidate, even back in 2008 when she ran against Obama. Obama was this unknown first-term senator, and this was a Clinton. This is Hillary Clinton. I think I think she's incredibly weak, and I guess we're just going to have to disagree on this. Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we're actually about ready to cut to our last commercial break of the day. Christian, I loved having you on, man. I love talking to you. I like that we disagree on things, and you're not a yes man, and we can sit here and have a conversation about it.
Well, that's America. That's who America's supposed to be. We're not supposed to agree with each other. We're supposed to challenge each other, and then come together on the things we do agree on.
Absolutely. And again, we can work towards things together. We may not agree necessarily on where it should stop, but we have an idea. Like, for example, on the abortion issue, we agree that at least at a minimum, no federal funding should be a state's issue. I'm sure you'd like to see it completely banned, but at least that's a step in the right direction for you and me both. And I love the fact that we can have these conversations. And it's just great having you on. And by the way, I don't think I've publicly thanked you for filling in before in the past on our show. So thank you. I appreciate everything you've done for us, man.
Oh, no problem, guys. And like I said, tomorrow actually we'll be doing more in detail coverage on the Blaze Radio with Doc and Skip. So I'll be there at 6 a.m. in the morning, talking to the guys, giving more information on what happened here in Orlando.
Awesome. So Chris, where can people go if they want to, follow more of what you're doing? Where can they go, check out your show that you do and your Twitter, all your social media, website, all that good stuff? Go ahead and blast it out.
Yeah. It's real easy, guys. If you want to get more in contact with me, I'm like the most easy person to get in contact with. Just go to twitter.com/RC_KRIS. Twitter.com/RC_KRIS. I literally have everything there ready for you guys. You have to do some clicking. You click on my website. You can click on my Instagram. You can click on my Snapchat. You can click on my Facebook. It's all there on the Twitter.com/RC_KRIS.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much, man. It was awesome to talk to you today, man.
No problem. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Take care. All right, guys. We're gonna go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I wanna dive into more about this shooting. I've got some details and some things that President Obama has said that I want to cover in the last 20 or 19 minutes of the program here. So anyway, without further ado, we'll be right back. You guys don't want to miss what's coming up next.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA.
I do solemnly swear that I will support.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, gang, we're back. Okay, so when we last left, we had Chris Cruz on the show. We've talked about all sorts of things today. I really enjoyed today's conversation. I hope you guys did too. We've got a couple of things that I want to get to here. First of all, I want to point out a couple of points from this shooting that we saw, this terror attack that happened in Orlando, Florida today. One of the things that you're going to hear upcoming is all of the ways that the government should get bigger because of this threat of shooters, of active shooters, of lone wolf terrorists, all right? Lone wolf terrorists. And you're going to hear them make calls for increasing the federal Leviathan, restricting individual rights, like they want to come after your right to encryption. It's the classic security versus privacy debate. And I want to look at this from the perspective of how we can empower at the lowest level the individual to combat ISIS, at least and these threats to the homeland. But I'll get to that in 1 second. I just want to point out some of the flaws in the arguments that the left is going to make, because we know that they jump on these bandwagons immediately. So first, let's finish what Obama was saying in his speech. I got one last clip here of him talking about this shooting. Here he goes.
Today marks the most deadly shooting in American history. The shooter was apparently armed with a handgun and a powerful assault rifle. This massacre is therefore a further reminder of how easy it is for someone to get their hands on a weapon that lets them shoot people in a school, or in a house of worship, or a movie theater, or in a nightclub. And we have to decide if that's the kind of country we want to be. And to actively do nothing is a decision as well.
Okay, so first of all, to actively do nothing is a decision as well. One could say that about his involvement, with trying to contain ISIS, actually going after ISIS, the lack of going after ISIS. We know that the government has not acted against ISIS. In fact, they've acted directly against the Syrian dictator, President Bashar al-Assad. There we go. Got him confused. So, it's interesting he's talking about that. But he's talking about, easy access to firearms. And I think it's important to note here. Let's mention, as I mentioned before, Paris was attacked. Paris has extremely restrictive gun laws. They ban most guns. So where in the world did the Paris attackers get their assault weapons? And these were actually assault weapons. These guys had Kalashnikov-style weapons. I mean, as far as I understand, these are fully auto weapons. Maybe I'm wrong, but they also had bombs and things like that obviously France does not have illegal. So here's an article on the Daily Beast. This is how AK-47s get to Paris. And they're talking about, in this article, by the way, the article is written by, I believe the guy's name is David Axe. Yes, David Axe. And Eastern Europe, most likely where trafficking of deadly small arms is big, shady business, and where local authorities find it difficult to intervene. The French government and the European Union know they have a foreign gun problem, but as the chain of attacks illustrates, efforts to tamp down on the flow of weapons have so far failed to disarm the terrorists. French police reportedly seized more than 1,500 illegal weapons in 2009 and no fewer than 2,700 in 2010. The number of illegal guns in France has swollen by double-digit percentages annually for several years. So, okay, let's just assume that this is a foreign problem, that there are no guns inside of Paris without foreign guns coming in. I don't believe it, but let's assume. We know, number one, that the police have guns, that the government has the guns because they have to have the monopoly on force. So let's look at some interesting stories here that I'm not necessarily saying that this is going on, but you could see it happening. First of all, in our case, all right, our government is funding and arming terrorists. So here's an article on the freethoughtproject.com. The CIA has given so many weapons to Syrian jihadists, ISIS is now selling them on Facebook. The U.S. has been dumping so many weapons into the Syrian conflict. By the way, article written by Matt Agarist. Matt Agarist. Last year, the Free Thought Project reported on a video apparently recorded just outside of Aleppo, Syria. The video illustrated just how insane the U.S. war on terror has become. In the video, the U.S.-backed, armed, and financed Free Syrian Army, a.k.a. moderate rebels, a.k.a. ISIS-linked terrorists, are firing a U.S.-supplied anti-tank tow-guided missile. Of course, the moderate rebels, in quotes, firing a U.S. missile is nothing out of the ordinary. However, the article goes on. Governments are giving our enemies, terrorists, weapons. How do we expect to keep the weapons out of their hands? This doesn't make any sense. We're attacked by terrorists here at home, and our federal government, our president, is advocating disarming the citizens while they are simultaneously arming the people that just attacked us. This doesn't make any sense. Furthermore, the weapons that again, our federal government has. Let's imagine here that even in the ideal world that let's pretend they're not giving guns to our enemies. Let's just pretend. All right, let's play pretend, everyone. Let's go to our safe space and play pretend. Let me just bring up a little point here, an article here by, this is on the website governing.com. It's showing the statistics here, the governing data. Guns reported stolen, missing, and these are the state totals. So nearly 200,000 guns were reported lost or stolen last year, according to federal data. The following table shows the number of guns stolen or reported in 2016. This is reported missing by the National Crime Information Center for 2012. Sorry. Texas, 18,000 lost or stolen. Georgia, 12,906. Florida, 12,571. It goes on and on and on. You can read this yourself, governing.com. Lots of information. In fact, I posted it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. As of right now, I'm going to our group, facebook.com/groups/OnTheMoveShow, and posting this here. You guys can check it out yourself and see how many guns have been stolen. And hey, you don't have to believe this website. I understand you may not, believe this source. So let's go to Kate Steinle. You remember that Kate Steinle situation where an illegal immigrant who'd been previously deported multiple times shot Kate Steinle with a weapon? Oh, I don't know if you're aware of this or you remember, but that weapon was stolen. And where was it stolen out of? Oh, guess what? The U.S. Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. You may be familiar with them, with the situation with Clive and Bundy and all the stuff with the ranchers fighting over these guys and the Malar Refuge and Finicum being killed, Lavoy Finicum being killed. All of this stuff stems from the Bureau of Land Management, by the way. And they lost one of their guns, and it resulted in the death of Kate Steinle. There you go again. So that even in this utopian dream that the leftists and the statists want, that where only the police and the government have the firearms, or in some cases the left don't even want the government to have firearms. How are we supposed to protect ourselves from people like Russia, China, people who would actually, if they could, take over our resources? Again, the left coddles it coddles their supporters and denies reality. The reality is that the world is a cruel and brutal place, and there are some people out there who literally want to saw our heads off. It's a reality that we need to face. It's dangerous to deny it, and it can lead to tragedies. It can lead to us being vulnerable, like in the situation where we have a shooter that killed 50 American citizens. 50. 53 wounded. Who knows how many of those may die? as a result. If a few people, if one person was armed in this nightclub that was a gun-free zone, perhaps an armed citizen could have done something. Even if only 10% of the people there carried the firearms. Out of the 320 there, that's 3.2 people. So if my math is right, let me whip out the calculator because I'm terrible at math. Let's just make sure. Times 0.1. That's 32 people. 32 people. I suck at math, by the way. Anyway, so 32 people. 10% of the 320. 32 people in there were guns shooting back at an armed terrorist. Look. Gun control is not the answer to this. How you respond to threats on the homeland is to encourage people to be armed. And yeah, if somebody goes into a bar, drinks, shoots somebody because they got into a drunken argument or brawl, then yeah, they should pay the price. We have freedom in here, and with freedom comes responsibility, and you should be held accountable for your actions. If you decide to use your freedom to hurt someone else, you should be held accountable. You should be held, I mean, in my opinion, you should be taken out of society. If you pull your gun and try to kill somebody, you should be removed from society until you're no longer a threat. Simple. How do we deal with the threat of ISIS in our homeland? How do we deal with the threat of lone wolf gunmen radicalizing? How do we deal with that? Well, you encourage people to carry. You encourage people to carry everywhere. You encourage as many people to carry as possible. I personally would even... I'm against taxes. I don't like taxes. But I would even agree with a program where the government gave us guns to protect ourselves. Anybody wanting a gun to protect yourself, here's your gun. Come and get it. Hell, they fund Planned Parenthood. Imagine how the left would freak out about this. I'm actually just joking. I actually don't support, increasing the tax burden. But I'm just saying, people. That's how much this should be. This should be encouraged. We should be encouraging our people, our citizens, to take up arms to defend themselves in their community. How many lives would have been saved? We know potentially 50 could have been saved if even just 10% of the people in the audience were armed. 10% of the people in this nightclub were armed. 32 people were armed. Could have saved some lives. So, and we have other stories here where the government has lost control of these guns. It's an idealistic world that the left wants, and again, they do not view reality in the same way as you or I. And for the last 5 minutes of the show here, I kind of want to talk about something that I've seen here. I mentioned this before. I have a blog post that I wrote recently here. It was Saturday. And so I'm noticing this on my side of the aisle, I suppose. I don't really have a side, but people that I typically would consider allies and conservatives, maybe libertarians, constitutionalists. I've noticed this, and I want to bring up this conversation, and I want to actually shed some light on this because I think it's really easy for us to call for revolution, and I am against revolution. I'm against violence. I'm typically non-violent. I'm always non-violent. I'm typically a pacifist. I don't want to hurt anyone at all. And I certainly don't want to hurt anybody, even if they're harming me. I just don't like the idea of violence. But I will defend myself, and I especially will defend others. So let me read this article here, and I think I lay out the case of why revolution is not the answer. This article is titled, "I Don't Want to Fight the Government. It is an open letter to anyone calling for revolution." I don't want to fight the government. But I will stand against anyone who tries to trample on the rights of others or myself. The oath I swore to the Constitution does not expire. I firmly believe that the Bill of Rights is mankind's greatest intellectual achievement. The concept of self-governance property rights, etc., were completely new ideas a few hundred years ago. The Bill of Rights acknowledged the laws of nature and forbade the government from violating natural rights because the government's power originates from the people, not from the elite. As a result of unleashing the fury of human effort based on incentive, which governments throughout history have repressed, we saw an explosion in technological advancement and millions of people were lifted out of poverty, unlike any system of governance had ever accomplished before. In order to protect this human experiment in self-governance, we must do as anyone conducting an experiment would do: pay attention. We are responsible for being informed, educated, and engaged with our government at all levels. If our government is beginning to violate our rights because we have fallen asleep at the wheel, then how would a revolution be an answer to that? We have a completely uninformed population on what freedom really means. How likely is it that an uninformed populace will somehow find its way back to the ideas of self-ownership after a revolution? Do you really want to take that chance? What's more likely to happen will be for the United States to spiral into socialism and then maybe worse. Ever heard of fascism? If the Bill of Rights got derailed, the world would go dark, very dark. It would be like in the Middle Ages after the fall of Rome, where people could look at the giant monuments that were made hundreds of years before and know that people no longer could build like that. Those ideas were lost to the dustbin of history. People could actually look at those monuments and know that the past was better than the present. That, again, is why I am not in favor of revolution. We've got to be willing to engage. We've got to get educated and teach others. We've got to take a stand when our government steps out of line and hold their feet to the fire when they do. This is how we preserve liberty, not through revolution. Furthermore, nonviolent struggle is vastly more effective at pushing back against oppressive regimes. We ought not risk liberty for a shortcut to our problems. Liberty was won by the blood of our forefathers. We have to preserve these ideas not just for us, but for our posterity. Let us not let it slip away. And that's our show today, folks. I certainly appreciate tuning in. MacPack, thank you so much for tuning in week after week. You're the tip of the spear. Thanks so much to Chris Cruz for calling in and letting me bend his ear and chatting with you guys and us and everybody here. I had a lot of fun in that conversation. I hope he comes back again soon. Anyway, as always... Oh, actually, before we do this, don't forget to check us out on our website, On The Move Show. Follow us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow and Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow and Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.